Here's a question for you. If you were an NFL GM in 2023 and had the 12th overall pick in the draft, are you taking a chance on a running back? Bijan Robinson, maybe, but he was long gone by pick 12. Analysts thought the Lions were crazy to go for Jahmyr Gibbs. Of course he was good, but was he worth a top 12 pick? A lot of guys didn't even have him in the first round in mock drafts, but the Lions knew exactly what they wanted.
That's part of the element that makes it so fun is you're hoping he's still going to be there, and Skoronski goes off the board, and there he is, man.
With the 11th pick, the Tennessee Titans select Peter Skoronski.
2 years later, Gibbs is making NFL history with David Montgomery. 10-plus rushing touchdowns each in back-to-back seasons and 20 total for Gibbs in 2024. Sonic and Knuckles are setting the league on fire.
On first down, Jahmyr Gibbs with an opening, and Gibbs with great speed down the sideline. Jahmyr Gibbs, one man to beat. He'll beat him.
So, who really got it wrong here? Let's find out. Let's start at the top. The 2023 draft kicked off with the Carolina Panthers making Bryce Young the first overall pick. At Alabama, Young was electric. In 2021, he put together an incredible year, 4,872 yards and 47 touchdowns, which was enough to secure him the Heisman Trophy. His numbers went down a bit in 2022 with 3,328 passing yards and 32 passing touchdowns in 12 games, but that arm talent and football IQ had scouts drooling.
Because Bryce Young is just a magician to me, and he can do things that no other quarterback in this class can. But watch him on the field. Watch how poised he is. Like when everything breaks down around him and it's chaos and it ensues, that's when the game slows down the most for him.
But man, his NFL journey has been tough to watch so far. His rookie year was very rough. 2,877 yards with just 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions across 16 games, and he was sacked on more than 10% of his dropbacks. So the offensive line was not doing him any favors. And if you thought that was bad, 2024 started out even worse. Literally his first pass of the season was picked off, and after losing to the Chargers at home in week 2, 26-3, the Panthers benched him. Young said he was shocked by the decision, but the numbers don't lie. Carolina had the worst third down conversion rate out of any NFL team in more than 30 years.
He's thrown for 245 total yards in 2 games, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and yesterday against the Chargers, he had a quarterback rating of 8.9.
But here's where things get really interesting. By week number 8, Young was back starting under center with an okay showing against Denver. 224 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Then in week 10, he helped lead an overtime win against the Giants. But the real turnaround came in the final 3 weeks of the season. Against Arizona in week 16, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks.
That's a touchdown from Bryce Young.
Against Tampa Bay in week 17, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, and again, no interceptions. Then he saved the best for last in week 18 against Atlanta. 251 yards, 3 touchdowns, again without a single pick. The dude even rushed for 2 touchdowns on top of that. This didn't even look like the same player that we saw during the first 2 weeks of the year. What a wild ride, from getting his first pass of 2024 intercepted to finishing the season looking like the guy that Carolina thought they were drafting. Panthers fans might just have something to feel good about heading into 2025. The Houston Texans struck gold with the second overall pick. CJ Stroud came out of Ohio State after 2 monstrous seasons, 4,435 yards and 44 touchdowns in 2021, then 3,688 yards and 41 touchdowns in 2022. Those numbers had Texans fans excited, but nobody expected what was going to happen next.
Stroud fires deep, sideline throw, and Nico Collins hauls it in,
costing him 74 yards. The throw on time, the touchdown, Nico Collins. Stroud to the end zone, touchdown.
Stroud's rookie campaign was off the charts. We're talking 4,108 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, and somehow only 5 interceptions in 15 games. His 1% interception rate was the lowest in the entire NFL. That's crazy ball security, especially for a rookie. Offensive Rookie of the Year was a lock, and his name was even thrown in the MVP conversation.
To see what he's done with this team and just how he's changed the whole culture and gave the city hope, you know, having a guy like him who can go put points on the board.
There's been tons of clips floating around showing Stroud breaking down defenses, explaining coverages, and discussing play concepts. I mean, this guy trains and approaches the game like a 10-year vet. But 2024 did have some growing pains. Sophomore slump, some might say. His numbers dipped across the board: 3,727 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions over the full 17-game season. His yards per game dropped, touchdown percentage fell, interception percentage climbed, and he took more sacks behind a struggling offensive line. But even with the regression, Stroud guided the Texans to the playoffs, where they knocked out the Chargers before eventually falling to the Chiefs. Still, after 2 seasons, the Texans have to feel great about landing their franchise quarterback. And the Texans weren't done after grabbing Stroud. They actually traded up to get the 3rd pick too, snagging Alabama edge rusher Will Anderson Jr. He came to Houston with a solid college resume: 34.5 sacks and 63 tackles for a loss at Alabama. That's the kind of production that works at any level. As a rookie in 2023, he wasted no time living up to the hype. In 13 starts, he put up 7 sacks and got to the quarterback 22 times, winning Defensive Rookie of the Year and making the Pro Bowl. The way he stopped the run while still getting after the quarterback showed his game was complete right from the start. In year 2, Anderson continued playing at a high level. Even though he only played in 14 games in 2024, his sacks jumped up to 11. His quick first step and hand fighting let him beat offensive tackles in many different ways. But what makes him special compared to other pass rushers is how he prepares. His film study and professional mindset gives him the real edge. He figures out plays quickly and doesn't make mental mistakes too often. With Stroud running the offense and Anderson leading the defense, the Texans have built a foundation that should keep them in the mix for many years to come. Those back-to-back draft picks in 2023 might go down as one of the best draft hauls we have seen in a long time. After watching the Texans snag 2 franchise cornerstones, the Colts took their swing at quarterback, with Anthony Richardson at pick 4. This pick was all about potential. Unlike Stroud and Young, Richardson never put up huge numbers in college. Just 2,549 yards with 17 touchdowns and 9 interceptions in his 12 games during 2022.
Maybe one of the most polarizing prospects in Anthony Richardson. Many believe the Gators quarterback has huge upside, but there are significant accuracy concerns. Only 4 QBs have been selected in the first round in the last 25 drafts with a sub-55 completion percentage.
But man, the physical tools are something else here. Richardson throws the ball like he's trying to put it through a brick wall. Whether it's a deep bomb or a quick slant, the ball comes out like a cannon. His arm talent is off the charts.
Pressure's coming. Richardson slips. Now he's airing it out deep down the field for Pierce. Touchdown!
But his NFL career so far has consisted of 3 things. You got your flashes of brilliance, your accuracy issues, and a whole lot of time on the sidelines. In 2023, he only played 4 games due to a shoulder injury. He finished that year with 577 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And his best game came in Week 4 against the Rams, where he threw for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a solid 98.7 passer rating. Even in that game, though, he only completed 11 out of his 25 pass attempts. Heading into 2024, the hype for Richardson was insane. But what followed was another roller coaster ride. In 11 games, he threw for 1,814 yards with 8 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. His performances were all over the place. Week 1, for example, he showed some promise, throwing for 212 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and running in another. But then in Week 2, just 1 touchdown to 3 interceptions. The guy just couldn't string 2 good games together, and his accuracy was still a major concern. Staying healthy has been a huge problem, with Richardson missing 17 games over his first 2 seasons with everything from concussions to back problems. The Colts even sat him out for 2 games because he wasn't focused enough. The talent is certainly there, but it's still more about what he could turn into rather than what he is right now. The Colts are still trying to figure out if they can build around this guy for the future. The Seahawks absolutely nailed their pick at number 5 with cornerback Devon Witherspoon. At Illinois, he was an All-American in 2022 with 41 tackles and 3 interceptions, and he brought that same elite level of play right into the NFL. His rookie season in 2023 was incredible. The big highlight came in Week 4 against the Giants when he picked off a pass and took it back 97 yards to the house. But Witherspoon wasn't just a one-play wonder. In 14 games, he had 3 sacks, 79 tackles, and broke up 16 passes. Some people thought that he even should have won Defensive Rookie of the Year over Will Anderson. He kept going in 2024, making his second straight Pro Bowl with 98 tackles, 9 pass breakups, and a sack. Pro Football Focus had him as the 3rd best cornerback against the run in the entire league, although his coverage ranking was 49th. So when you put that all together, he's 20th among all cornerbacks, which is still pretty good for such a young player. What really jumps out here is how good he is at tackling. Witherspoon had the most tackles for a cornerback in 2024, and he only gave up 63 catches, which was 6th best among his position. But when you watch him play, it did feel like there was a bit of a drop-off in his overall impact during year 2, which makes you wonder, is he going to keep getting better, or has he already hit his peak? Hopefully not the second one. Either way, the Seahawks are counting on Witherspoon to be a key piece of their defense for many years to come. The Cardinals went with protection at pick 6, grabbing Ohio State All-American tackle Paris Johnson Jr. When you're rebuilding a franchise, securing the offensive line is always a smart thing to do, and Johnson has mostly lived up to that first-round hype. Pro Football Focus had him as the 12th best tackle in the league for 2024, putting him solidly in the upper tier for his position. That's pretty impressive for a young lineman who's still getting used to the speed and power of NFL pass rushers. But when you dig deeper into the stats, you can see where he still needs to grow. He gave up 4 sacks in 2024, which ranked him 96th among all tackles. Not exactly great, and ultimately being consistent at the tackle position really matters more than anything else.
You know, Chris, it's not real sexy. It doesn't do much for the fantasy football crowd, but these are key pieces of a team. And when your offensive line is great, goes back to what Sean Payton said recently about Bill Parcells. When your offensive line is great, it permeates the entire building.
It's huge. And like we talked about too, O-line, it's become more of a premium because college football has become so basic. There's just very few that are really ready to go and play right away.
For Arizona, getting a potential franchise tackle at pick 6 is looking like one of their smarter draft moves in recent years, even though it would still be pretty awesome to see Gibbs and Kyler Murray on the same offense. That would be an insane read option that I don't think anybody could stop. The Raiders' choice at pick 7 has been more of a slow burn. Tyree Wilson came out of college without huge numbers, just 17 sacks across 4 seasons, with most of his growth happening in his final 2 years with the Red Raiders.
Big physical presence right there with Tyree Wilson. The best D lineman for the Red Raiders. That's somebody you might want to keep an eye on.
The jump to the NFL has been tough for Wilson, especially when you compare him to Will Anderson, who went just 4 picks earlier. Wilson had only 3.5 sacks and 8 quarterback hits as a rookie in 2023, before bumping his numbers up to 4.5 sacks and 10 quarterback hits in 2024. And if you look at PFF, they ranked him as just the 70th best edge rusher in the league during 2024. When I say PFF for the rest of this video, I'm referring to Pro Football Focus, by the way. That's pretty worrying for a top 10 pick. He's been better against the run than getting after quarterbacks, but his overall impact has been limited. Pass rushers often need time to develop, so it's too early to make final judgments about Wilson's career, but there's definitely a gap between where he was drafted and what he's shown on the field so far. Pick number 8 was a very interesting one. The Falcons made a huge splash when they took Texas star Bijan Robinson.
He's the best player on their offense right away. This is the ideal landing spot for him.
In college, Robinson was unstoppable for the Longhorns, putting up 1,580 rushing yards and 20 total touchdowns in 2022 alone. And that production carried right over to the NFL.
Bijan Robinson dancing around, and he has the football, puts a move on. Bijan Robinson, he's going to have his first NFL touchdown.
His rookie year showed that he was a serious dual threat with 1,463 yards from scrimmage and 8 touchdowns in 2023. But year number 2 is when this guy really took off. 1,887 total yards and 15 touchdowns in 2024, making the Pro Bowl and establishing himself as one of the NFL's best running backs.
Big hole left side.
breaking the tackle inside the 30.
Like we said, he's the engine. 2nd and goal. Robinson again. Matthews with the block. That is a touchdown.
The thing that's really impressive to me is he's doing all of this on a mediocre team. I mean, the Falcons went 7-10 in 2023 and then 8-9 in 2024. Defenses know he's getting the ball and they still cannot stop him. The problem in Atlanta that I'm seeing, at least as a neutral viewer, is that you need to get this guy the ball a lot more. Tyler Algier should not be touching the ball more than a couple times a game, when Bijan is clearly the better player. PFF ranks him as the 2nd best running back in the entire league for 2024 with a 92.8 overall grade, only behind Derrick Henry. His receiving skills make him even more dangerous. He's a 3-down back who, in my opinion, shouldn't come off the field too often. Robinson saved his best for last in 2024, shredding the Panthers defense for 170 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. The way he moves so quickly in tight spaces makes defenders miss constantly, creating big plays even when the blocking isn't too great. Young, Stroud, and Robinson are 3 guys that you can't really blame teams for taking ahead of Gibbs, even with a bit of hindsight. But it's definitely going to be interesting watching these 2 running backs battle it out over these upcoming seasons. It could be like the whole Barry Sanders versus Emmitt Smith situation all over again. A decade of highlights with 2 guys fighting for that top spot. Here's another guy who looks like he's paying off in a big way. The Eagles found themselves a defensive monster with Jaylen Carter at pick 9. His college resume is great. 2-time national champion and All-American at Georgia, where he dominated despite not having eye-popping stats. Just 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles in his final year, but his run stopping was elite. Carter's impact so far in Philly has been huge. He had a good start in his rookie year, putting up 6 sacks, 33 tackles, and even returned a fumble for a touchdown, finishing 2nd in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting.
Now you got Bourne over there. I'd be attacking that.
Jones in trouble. They got him. To make some hero throw.
They go to Cook. Nope. Oh, look at that swarm.
But in year number 2, he took a massive leap. The box score shows 4.5 sacks and 42 tackles, but anybody watching the games knows his impact was way bigger than those numbers. PFF had him as the 7th best interior defender against the pass because he consistently gets pressure even when you double team him. That kind of disruption forces quarterbacks to move and collapses the pocket from the inside, which is exactly what offenses hate the most. Carter shows up big in the biggest moments too. Against the Rams in the playoffs, his 2 clutch sacks made the difference in their 28-22 win.
3rd and 2. Stafford in trouble. He's sacked. Brought down by Jaylen Carter.
And he gave Patrick Mahomes nightmares during the Super Bowl, blowing up the pocket as part of that insane 4-man rush. When Aaron Donald calls you the next Aaron Donald, that's about as good of a compliment as you could possibly get. Carter seems to be living up to that comparison so far, making the Pro Bowl and the All-Pro 2nd team in just his 2nd year, with some serious buzz about him as a future Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Yeah, you really can't argue with this pick at all. And if it wasn't for his off-field issues leading up to the draft, Carter would have never been available at number 9 for Philly to grab him. After the Eagles grabbed their defensive game record, the Bears took a more steady approach with Tennessee's Darnell Wright at pick 10. A lot of people had him highly rated at the time.
Look, I believe that this young man, when it's all said and done, has the ability to be the best player in this draft.
After 4 seasons with the Volunteers, Wright brought that same reliability to Chicago's offensive line. Obviously, offensive tackles don't really make the highlight reels, but Wright's development shows exactly why using those high draft picks on the trenches often pays off in the long run. PFF has him as the 16th best offensive tackle in 2024 and 7th best in run blocking. That's seriously good for a 2nd-year player, and you won't see him missing a block very often. What makes Wright so valuable is the stability that he brings to the Bears offense that's been going through a ton of changes. Fans might not buy his jersey or get hyped up the same way they do for Caleb Williams, but this seems like a decent call for the Bears. He's becoming a solid piece who will probably anchor their line for years to come. Coming out of Northwestern with All-American honors in 2022, after 3 solid seasons, Peter Skoronski seemed like he should be a solid draft choice.
How you doing, Peter? This is Rand with the Tennessee Titans. How you doing, man? Man, we're going to turn this card in and make you a Titan officially, man. You're a guy that we coveted, that we've liked for a long time, and We think he come in here and help us build this thing right.
But so close to the top 10, looking back, this one seems interesting. Right now, he's sitting in that middle ground that makes draft analysis so difficult. PFF ranked him as just 71st overall among tackles in 2024, but he was 12th best in pass protection, which is something that you can't ignore. What the Titans would like to ignore is him being ranked 107th in run blocking. He wasn't helping out Tony Pollard or Tajay Spears too much last season, but it does make you question his overall value. When you spend such a high pick on an interior lineman, you really need someone that's going to transform your line, not just a decent starter. Skoronski has shown flashes of his potential, but the complete package just isn't there yet. And when you see what a monster Jahmyr Gibbs has turned out to be, he's the kind of player that could have Titans fans revisiting the glory days of Madden with CJ2K. The problem is that they really still need an offensive line, so the Titans probably wouldn't have been much better off. What's interesting is we're coming out of this era where running backs have lost a lot of their value, but in the last couple of years, they're definitely getting their shine back. With the success of Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, and obviously Saquon Barkley, and now we got the young, exciting players like Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, we're probably going to see running backs get a bit more respect. Looking at all these guys taken before Gibbs, you've got some hits, some misses, and a whole lot of what-ifs. Yeah, we got some real difference makers like CJ Stroud, and then Jaylen Carter looks like he might be a generational talent on the defensive line. Bijan Robinson also has looked great so far, but then you've got guys still trying to figure it out. When the Lions took Gibbs at number 12, the draft experts lost their minds. But Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes knew exactly what they were doing. Just goes to show you that sometimes you gotta say screw it and follow your gut. Picture this, you're drafted first overall as a quarterback, and overnight millions of fans expect you to fix a franchise that's been losing for years. One moment you're walking across the stage with the world calling you a savior, and a few years later you might be on your third team or out of the league completely. Since 1970, 29 quarterbacks have been given that spotlight, so how often are they actually worth that number one pick? In this video, we're going year by year through every single one of them to see who became a legend and who vanished from the game. Starting with Terry Bradshaw, who was literally trying to go fishing on draft day because he didn't think he was going to get picked so high up. His dad made him throw on a jacket when Pittsburgh called to say that they were taking him first overall. That confidence boost did not last long though. His rookie year was a complete mess with 24 interceptions and only 6 touchdowns. It was looking like a rocky marriage, but talk about a comeback. Bradshaw, who, by the way, called his own plays for his entire 14-year career, won 4 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVP awards, while also being inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1989.
Turns out it was a perfect marriage because the proof's in the pudding. The guy's got more rings than a married pimp.
Jim Plunkett was called the best quarterback prospect ever by UCLA coach Tommy Prothro, but after 5 years with New England, he got traded. He went to the 49ers, who cut him after 2 seasons, and he seriously thought about quitting football entirely before the Raiders threw him a backup job. When Dan Pastorini got hurt, Plunkett stepped in and somehow took the Raiders from 0-2 to a Super Bowl championship in 1980.
Because without Jim Plunkett's expertise and guidance, you could really build a good case that maybe those 2 Super Bowls might not have actually happened.
Then, 3 years later, they won it all again. New England and San Francisco fans would certainly consider Plunkett as a bust, but Raiders fans have to be thankful for him bringing home the Lombardi Trophy 2 times. Moving on to 1975, the Falcons actually traded up to number 1 just to get Steve Bartkowski, and you know what? In a way, they got their money's worth, even though things were very up and down with him. In 1980, Bartkowski led the league in passing touchdowns with 31, along with having the most game-winning drives by any quarterback. This guy played 11 seasons with knee damage so bad, he literally had 0 cartilage left between his bones. He went through 11 knee surgeries, but still got Atlanta their first ever playoff win and made the Pro Bowl 2 times. Now, John Elway is exactly what every NFL team is hoping for when they get that number 1 overall pick. Minus the mind games anyways. Because he straight up told the Baltimore Colts when they drafted him that he would rather play baseball for the Yankees than suit up for them. Baltimore had no choice really but to trade him to Denver, where he started to show why he was worth all that drama in year number 2. Elway's clutch factor was out of this world. In 1985, he led the league with 6 fourth quarter comebacks and managed to lead the league in that category twice after that.
I remember the drive. I remember watching the drive on television, but to experience it and be a part of it is something entirely different.
He carried teams that had no business being in Super Bowls and got them there through pure arm talent and willpower. Sure, he lost 3 early on, but finally when he got Terrell Davis running the ball, he went out on top with back-to-back championships to finish off his career. Next up, we've got Vinny Testaverde, who played 21 seasons for 7 different teams, all while being colorblind. The story goes that fans were so mean they put up a billboard saying, "Vinny thinks this is orange," with an arrow pointing to a blue background. The Heisman winner from Miami was supposed to be the next big thing, but his second season was brutal with 35 interceptions, which is still the second most in NFL history for a single season. But this guy just kept grinding for over 2 decades, and he eventually became the oldest starting quarterback for a season at the age of 44 with Carolina, although Tom Brady eventually topped that in Tampa Bay. Testaverde's best year was 1998 with the Jets, where he led them to a 12-1 record as a starter and a first-place finish in the AFC East. He threw for 3,256 yards, 29 touchdowns, and just 7 interceptions. Unfortunately, they were knocked out of the playoffs in the AFC Championship game by that John Elway-led Broncos team. When Troy Aikman was drafted first overall in 1989, Dallas knew that they had something special. One of his biggest moments came in Super Bowl 27, where he torched the Bills for 273 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 52-17 beatdown. That capped off one of the best playoff runs that we have ever seen. 795 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions across 3 games. And sure, Aikman did have Emmitt Smith and that monster offensive line, but he was the steady guy who led Dallas to 3 Super Bowl wins, and his arm talent was legit. Nowadays, he's probably more famous for his Monday Night Football broadcast, but you cannot forget about what he used to do on the football field. The Colts traded away 2 players, including a 6-time Pro Bowler at the time, along with a couple of draft picks to move up and grab Jeff George first overall. But before the 1993 season began, he refused to report to training camp, which isn't exactly what you want from your starting quarterback, or your number 1 overall pick for that matter. He got traded to Atlanta the year after and actually led the NFL in game-winning drives in 1995, getting them into the playoffs. But those attitude problems always came back to bite him in the end. It was so bad that he actually got into a screaming match with his coach on live TV, which, you won't be surprised to hear this, but it got him suspended. And even though they said it was overblown, he still left for the Raiders the very next year. And the funny part is, even though they couldn't win games, George still led the league in passing yards during that first year with Oakland. So we all know Drew Bledsoe as the guy who got injured and replaced by Tom Brady. But did you guys know that the same hit almost ended his life? I mean, he could have died without emergency treatment.
Yeah, if they let me go home, I would have died. I was bleeding out at about 1 liter an hour internally. And by the time they got me to the hospital, I was out.
Before that moment, he was a Pro Bowl quarterback. New England basically drafted him to save their franchise, and he did a solid job at that for almost 10 years. His second season, he led the NFL with 4,555 passing yards, although he also threw 27 picks. New England had him throwing the ball non-stop as he led the league in attempts for 3 straight years from 1994 to 1996. His biggest moment was in 1996 when he got the Patriots to their first Super Bowl since 1985, even though they ended up losing to Brett Favre's Packers. These days, Bledsoe loves trolling Brady on social media and making fun of his quote-unquote squeaky voice as a broadcaster. I mean, the guy has absolutely no filter, and it's pretty damn funny to listen to. Okay, we've had Elway, but as far as number 1 overall picks go, Peyton Manning might be the best of the bunch. Which makes it especially crazy to think that half the NFL executives actually wanted Ryan Leaf over him back in the day.
He's been, brought up by his dad. He's had great coaching. He's been in the pro system. He's as good as he's going to be.
One personnel guy even said that if his name was Peyton Jones instead of Manning, he'd be a 3rd-round pick because of his weak arm. Obviously, we now know the Colts nailed this pick. He knew offense and defensive schemes better than most coaches did. That prep work, along with his insane talent, got him 5 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls, and a bunch of records. When you watched him play, you just got a sense that he was elevating the entire team, and he could probably do it on any team for that matter, which you cannot say for most quarterbacks.
If you take him out the game, no disrespect to nobody else on the Colts, but you make them a very below average ball club.
One of his biggest moments was in Super Bowl 41 against Chicago. Down 14-6, Manning came back to beat the Bears 29-17 and finally got that Super Bowl MVP. But honestly, his 2013 season in Denver might have been even better. 55 touchdowns and 5,477 yards with an offense that basically broke football. 1 year after Manning, Tim Couch was taken first, and you really can't draw up more of an opposite story. Tim Couch came from Hyden, Kentucky, which had a population of about 360 people when he was drafted. Couch set national high school records, but man, the Browns were just about the worst spot that any quarterback could have landed. Injuries wrecked his career before he really could figure things out, and now he's mostly famous for that jersey meme with all the Browns quarterbacks' names on the back. If we give Peyton Manning the award for best quarterback on this list, Michael Vick gets the most exciting. This guy completely changed what it meant to be a quarterback. He was also the first quarterback to rush for 1,000 yards in a season, hitting 1,039 yards in 2006. Then everything crashed with the whole dogfighting thing.
First, I want to apologize, for all the things that I've done and that I've allowed to happen. I will redeem myself.
He was sentenced to 23 months in prison, and his career was looking done at the age of 27. But Vick's Eagles comeback was unbelievable. In 2010, he threw for over 3,000 yards and 21 touchdowns, showing that he still had that spark. And that Monday Night Football game against Washington might be one of the most dominant performances that I have personally ever seen. That's the kind of game where everything just works and there is really nothing the opposing team can do to stop it. I mean, when the first play of the game is an 88-yard touchdown pass, you just knew it was going to be a long night for Washington.
Rolling and launching downfield for Deshaun Jackson, who accelerates, caught the opening play, and all the way for a touchdown.
But if Vick got derailed through his own character issues, David Carr got absolutely crushed behind what might be one of the worst offensive lines, if not the worst offensive line in NFL history. This was the first season for the Texans, coming into the league as an expansion team, and they let him get sacked a record 76 times as a rookie. The guy was sacked the most 3 out of his first 4 seasons in the league. You just can't develop when you're running for your life every single play. Carr had real arm talent and accuracy coming out of Fresno State, but Houston's front office basically threw him to the wolves. You can argue that we got robbed of prime Carson Palmer as well. He was putting together a really solid career in Cincinnati until the Steelers completely wrecked his knee. He was never quite the same guy after that, and I mean, can you really blame him? But he still managed to have a whole second career in Arizona after basically refusing to play for the Bengals and forcing a trade and a stint in Oakland that's best to forget about. He made the Pro Bowl for the first time since 2006. It was cool to see that he still had elite skills when he had the right team around him and some actual protection. 2015 was the highlight of his time with the Cardinals, where he threw for 4,671 yards, 35 touchdowns, while leading the league in QBR and game-winning drives. We haven't had any draft day drama for a minute, so let's just move on to Eli Manning here, who was a Charger for exactly 45 minutes on draft day before getting shipped to the Giants. Eli is one of the weirdest quarterbacks ever. He pulled off 2 of the most shocking Super Bowl upsets in history, beating that undefeated Patriots team in the 2007 season, then beating the Pats again in Super Bowl 46.
4-man rush. Eli throwing into traffic on the sideline. They had a rule and a catch by Manningham.
He was a 2-time Super Bowl MVP who somehow always stepped up in the playoffs, even though he was pretty up and down during the regular seasons. I mean, look at his record. Literally a 50% win rate with 117 wins and 117 losses in the regular season. And yet, he'll still probably get into the Hall of Fame because he's such a key part of NFL history. Alex Smith was such a smart dude that he graduated college in 2 years with a 3.74 GPA in economics and was working on his master's before even getting drafted. But his NFL start was rough. Smith was injured much more than the average player and also had to deal with 5 different offensive coordinators in 6 years before Jim Harbaugh finally figured out how to let him thrive. Smith turned into the ultimate game manager type of guy, getting teams into the playoffs, but never really living up to those first overall expectations. And then that brutal 2018 leg injury almost ended his entire career. But he was tough as nails in return for one final season, winning Comeback Player of the Year. hindsight, it's kind of weird thinking what things would have looked like if the 49ers went with Aaron Rodgers instead with that #1 pick. Alright, sorry Raiders fans, but this pick is just peak Raiders. It will never not be crazy to me that they picked Jamarcus Russell when they could have traded down and had Adrian Peterson, Calvin Johnson, Patrick Willis, Darrelle Revis, or Joe Thomas, all basically GOAT tier guys at their positions. Yeah, Russell could launch a ball 70 yards flat-footed, but he had about a million red flags. Then the guy held out for so long during his rookie year that he even missed out on week 1, didn't play until week 13 of that year, skipped mandatory team meetings to hit up Vegas, and got benched by his 3rd season after completing less than 50% of his passes. His coaches also gave him blank tapes to see if he was studying the film. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. Russell couldn't have cared any less. But you cannot say that same thing about the next guy on our list. Matthew Stafford spent over 10 years dragging awful Lions teams around before finally getting his ring with the Rams in 2021. This dude was making no-look passes and threading balls into tiny windows seem easy to do. His rookie year basically told you everything about his heart. Playing through a separated shoulder, mic'd up so you could hear him wincing in pain, still throwing the game-winning touchdown while he's clearly hurting.
Stafford sets, looks, now running back to his right. Stafford looking for somewhere to go, sets and throws. Oh! Last play of the game, takes the snap, rolls, end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
When the Rams got him in 2021, Stafford finally had the pieces around him to match that rocket arm, and he led them straight to a Super Bowl victory. If you ask me though, there is nothing compared to the connection that Stafford and Calvin Johnson had back in Detroit. They were a blast to watch. Now we're going to go from one Rams quarterback to another, and it's kind of weird to think how long Sam Bradford has been out of the league when Stafford is still contending for championships. After winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, Bradford's career turned upside down. Torn ACLs, shoulder issues, high ankle sprains, knee problems. This guy could not stay healthy for long enough to do anything. Props to him though, because he did make more money than most NFL Hall of Famers. Moving on to Cam Newton, and this guy became the only rookie quarterback ever to throw for 400 yards in his first game. Plus, he did it on the road, immediately showing everybody that he was something totally different. And then he went and did it again in week 2. At 245 pounds, he was trucking linebackers one play and dropping dimes the very next.
Whenever he first got into the NFL, everybody looked at him and said, if this guy figures it out, we're all in trouble.
His 2015 MVP season was awesome. Newton took the Panthers to a 15-1 record while dabbing on defenders and giving his touchdown balls to kids in the stands. The Superman thing, the swagger, the way he carried that whole franchise to Super Bowl 50, you just had to watch every single week. It's kind of a shame that he dropped off so fast after 2018, but he still had one of the best careers for a quarterback taken first overall. It only took one more draft to get another generational guy at the top spot. Scouts called Andrew Luck the most NFL-ready quarterback prospect ever coming out of Stanford, and he pretty much backed that up right away. He set the rookie passing yards record and dragged some pretty terrible Colts teams to 3 straight playoff runs through pure talent and toughness. That 2014 AFC wildcard game was the perfect example, coming back from 28 points down against the Kansas City Chiefs and coming out with a win. He was getting absolutely crushed, taking shot after shot, but still making crazy throws downfield. The shoulder injury that wiped out his 2017 season changed everything. When he came back in 2018, he looked great again, got the Colts to the playoffs and threw 39 touchdowns, but all the physical and mental wear had been piling up for years.
Hello, this certainly isn't how I envisioned this or planned this, but I am going to retire. This is not an easy decision. Honestly, it's the hardest decision of my life.
His retirement announcement right before the 2019 season shocked everybody, but it totally made sense for him. Luck was done with the constant rehab, done playing hurt, done with that whole cycle of getting injured and trying to come back over and over again. It's one of the NFL's biggest what-if stories, but you can't really blame the guy for putting himself first. Next up, we've got Jameis Winston, drafted first overall in 2015. Do me a favor now. Close your eyes and imagine the most consistent quarterback of all time. All right, now open up your eyes because Jameis Winston is not that guy. He made history in 2019 as the first NFL player to ever throw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in the same year, creating a 30 for 30 club that nobody wants to be in. Winston's 5 years in Tampa Bay were basically a highlight reel and a blooper reel all mixed into one. Perfect touchdown throws followed by easy pick sixes. The second Tom Brady became available, Tampa dumped him and won the Super Bowl. But if you want a motivational speech or a good laugh, Jameis is still your guy. Sometimes the number one pick delivers right away, sometimes they're a bust, and sometimes you get Jared Goff. He went 0-7 as a rookie and looked completely lost until Sean McVay walked in and basically turned him into a Super Bowl caliber quarterback overnight. When the Rams shipped him to Detroit for Matthew Stafford, it felt like they'd figured out his limits, but Goff has been killing it in Detroit with multiple playoff runs and even getting some MVP votes last season. The 2025-26 season is when the Lions really need to put all the pieces together and make a Super Bowl run, because the clock is ticking for Goff and he is not getting any younger. It's hard to top that for crazy journeys, but Baker Mayfield might just give Goff a run for his money. He walked on at Texas Tech and Oklahoma, won the Heisman, then planted that Oklahoma flag right at midfield in Ohio State Stadium, one of the most viral college football moments ever. Cleveland took him first overall as kind of a surprise pick, but when he started in week 3, he led a comeback win over the Jets in a big Thursday night game. After the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson, Mayfield got bounced around a bit. Many people thought he was headed out of the league in 2022 after his stint with Carolina, but then he put together one game-winning drive for the Rams that changed his entire career path.
Mayfield to the end zone to Jefferson. Is that possible? Touchdown!
In 2023, he landed with Tampa Bay, where he took the Bucs to back-to-back division titles. And this past season, he threw for 4,500 yards with 41 touchdowns. It definitely looks like he's found his home in Florida. Kyler Murray became the first player ever drafted in the first round of both the NFL and MLB drafts, picking football over a potential baseball career with the Oakland A's. At 5 feet 10 inches tall, he was the shortest quarterback ever taken first overall, which started endless arguments about whether his height would hurt him in the NFL. He's had some great moments like the Hail Murray and the scramble where he called a touchdown from the 43-yard line.
Pistol formation here. It is Murray on the keep. It's Zyber. Oh! Kyler Murray! Turn on the afterburners. He's gone!
But it's still up in the air whether or not he's going to be a truly elite quarterback like some of the other guys on this list. One guy that you do not have those questions about is Joe Burrow. He went from being third string at Ohio State to transferring to LSU and having maybe the greatest college football season ever. That 2019 run with 5,671 passing yards, 60 touchdowns, and a national championship was so good that it made him the obvious first pick. Burrow got Cincinnati to the Super Bowl in just his second year, then back to the AFC Championship the next season. But he's already had 2 season-ending injuries and won Comeback Player of the Year twice, which shows both how tough he is and how much his body's been beat down. His 2024 season had MVP numbers, leading the league in passing yards and touchdowns, but Cincinnati still missed the playoffs because they just couldn't make a stop on defense.
Joe, that's one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch play. I don't like playing against him. Why? Because he's so poised.
Burrow's got Hall of Fame talent for sure, but you just have to wonder if his body is going to be able to withstand a whole career behind Cincinnati's shaky offensive line. Trevor Lawrence rolled into the NFL as the most hyped quarterback since Andrew Luck. He torched Alabama as a true freshman for the national title and had a huge winning streak that made him the obvious #1 draft pick. But his NFL start was rough under Urban Meyer's complete mess of a coaching situation. And even though he bounced back in 2022 with that playoff win against the Chargers, Lawrence still hasn't consistently shown the magic that everybody was hoping for. Jacksonville totally fell apart late in 2023 when they should have made the playoffs, and injuries have slowed him down since then. Now with Travis Hunter as yet another weapon to throw to, the Jags have got to be thinking that this will finally be Lawrence's breakout year. Bryce Young's rookie year was brutal, with just 5.5 yards per attempt and less than a 60% completion rate, going 2-14 as a starter. He got benched early in his second season, which was pretty rough for a guy they just drafted first overall. But the cool thing here is that he actually looked way better when he got his job back in the second half of 2024. His accuracy and decision-making started looking more like what made him special at Alabama. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to feel like Young might surprise people in 2025. Caleb Williams rolled into the NFL as yet another quote-unquote generational quarterback, famous for painting his nails with messages like F Utah before big games and pulling in over $10 million in NIL money at USC. Chicago drafted him as their franchise savior, but his rookie year was kind of a mess. The Bears couldn't hold it together and fired their head coach and offensive coordinator mid-season. Williams got sacked a league-leading 68 times behind one of the worst offensive lines in football. He did flash that Mahomes-level stuff with crazy arm angles and some off-script magic every now and then, but it was hard to really judge how he's developing. He's going to need some real stable coaching and actual protection to hit his ceiling. Now we're on to Cam Ward, and he might be the most unlikely #1 pick in years. A zero-star high school guy from West Columbia, Texas, who started college at a smaller school named Incarnate Word. But this dude never doubted himself despite having just 2 college offers, grinding his way all the way up to starting for the University of Miami. We obviously don't know how his career is going to play out just yet, but it's for sure going to be interesting to watch, especially on a team that really has nowhere to go but up. So there it is, guys. Every quarterback taken first overall since 1970. Not many actually live up to the hype of that spot, but that doesn't mean the pressure gets any easier as time goes on. What do you all think, though? Is being drafted #1 overall really a blessing or a curse? So first up, the year 2000. Marshall Faulk of the St. Louis Rams had a season like no other. Are you ready for this? He scored 26 touchdowns in just 14 games, 18 rushing and 8 receiving. And just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier, Faulk racked up 1,359 rushing yards and 830 receiving yards for a combined total of 2,189 yards from scrimmage. To put that into perspective, that's over a mile. You remember running the mile for the physical fitness test in high school? Yeah, Faulk was doing that while running away from monster defensive players. He had a cutback move that left defenders in the dust and was the first running back to lead the NFL in receptions. In week number 9, he had to get arthroscopic surgery, which for most players would mean we'll see you next year, but not Faulk. This man came back and in his last 3 games alone put up 11 total touchdowns and 571 yards. His teammates couldn't stop raving about him either. He's the greatest player in the NFL, and that's something that's obvious to us, said Roland Williams. Kurt Warner also jumped in too, saying Marshall made their offense so unpredictable that defenses were always guessing wrong. The MVP voting wasn't even close. Faulk got 24 votes out of 50, while Donovan McNabb came in second with just 11. Even Ray Lewis, who was absolutely terrorizing offenses that year, only got 1 single vote. Faulk was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2011, and after hanging up the cleats, he spent some time as an NFL Network analyst until 2018. Now at 51 years old, he focuses on the Marshall Faulk Foundation, helping kids with education and leadership skills. He also speaks at events and football camps. Not a bad second act for one of the most electric players that we have ever seen. Moving on to 2001, Kurt Warner, quarterback from the St. Louis Rams, came back with a vengeance to snatch his 2nd MVP trophy in just 3 years. Let's be real here. Warner was playing quarterback like he was using cheat codes in a real-life video game. 4,830 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, and a very impressive 68.7% completion rate, leading the league in all 3 categories.
Warner back to pass, pump fake, unloads right side, Torrey's wide open. Makes the catch, it's a race for the end zone. Torrey Holt's going to win it. Touchdown Rams.
The Rams went 14-2 that season, leading the league in total offense with a ridiculous 503 points scored. This was nearly 100 points more than the next team, which was the Colts, sitting at 413 points. We're talking 31.4 points per game from the Rams. Warner was basically running a video game offense in real life, and that's why they were called the greatest show on turf. The way this guy played was something else. He played with precision, a lightning quick release, incredible vision to thread needles, even sometimes in triple coverage, unmatched football IQ, and graceful pocket movement. Warner stayed hot in the playoffs too, leading the Rams all the way to Super Bowl 36. Although they fell to the Patriots 20-17, thanks to Tom Brady, Warner did what he needed to do in the playoffs, throwing for 793 yards and 4 touchdowns in just 3 games. As Orlando Pace said it best, if you sit back and try to cover us, Kurt is going to pick you apart. The MVP race was actually pretty tight that year. Marshall Faulk finished second with 17 votes to Warner's 21, proving just how dominant that Rams offense really was. After hanging up the cleats in 2009, he got that gold jacket in 2017. Now at 53 years old, he's killing it as an NFL Network analyst, breaking down games with the same precision that he used to use breaking down opposing defenses. Plus, he's running his First Things First Foundation, helping out underprivileged kids. From bagging groceries to a 2-time MVP, all the way to a Hall of Famer, that's what we call a story. The year 2002 brings us Rich Gannon from the Oakland Raiders. Now, this guy started his NFL journey way back in 1987 with the Vikings, bouncing around the league before finding his groove with the Raiders in 1999. At 37 years old, he had a career-defining season, throwing for 4,689 yards and leading the Raiders to a Super Bowl. During that magical 2002 run, Gannon was basically unstoppable. He threw for 26 touchdowns to his 10 interceptions, guiding the Raiders to an 11-5 record. His completion rate was a ridiculous 67.6%. Under his command, the Raiders boasted the NFL's top-ranked offense. And it's important to note that Gannon led the league in completions and attempts, so this was a very pass-heavy offense. Gannon's leadership was crucial in the Raiders' playoff run, culminating in a Super Bowl appearance. Unfortunately, they were defeated by the Bucs 48-21.
You have to remember this all your life.
That's tipped, and that's a 5th pick of the game by Dwight Smith. And again, Dwight Smith is going to take it down the sideline.
But still getting there at 37 years old, that was something special. The MVP race was very tight that year. Brett Favre had a monster season with the Packers, throwing for 27 touchdowns, but Gannon's consistency, superior yardage, that high-powered offense really played a factor in the final decision. He retired in 2005 after a neck injury, and that same year, he was inducted into the University of Delaware Athletics Hall of Fame. After retiring, Gannon was breaking down games as a CBS sports broadcaster, probably still reading defenses better than most active quarterbacks, along with working for Sirius XM NFL and 33rd Team. His transition to broadcasting has really kept him close to the game that he mastered late in his career. 2003 was a wild year in the NFL because for only the second time in history we had co-regular season MVPs. The first year was in 1997 with Barry Sanders and Brett Favre, and then in 2003 it happened yet again. Peyton Manning and Steve McNair had nearly identical seasons, both leading their teams to 12-4 records, crushing the stats, and both were playing in the same division. Let's start with Air McNair. He led the Titans to 3,215 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, and just 7 interceptions, posting a league-best 100.4 passer rating. His dual threat ability made him nearly unstoppable. He added 112 more rushing yards and 4 more rushing touchdowns than Peyton Manning did. What made this even more impressive, he put up these numbers while missing 2 games in the regular season with calf and ankle injuries. But more specifically, McNair became the youngest player ever to hit 20,000 passing yards and 3,000 rushing yards. Manning from the Colts threw for 4,267 yards with a 67% completion rate and a 29-10 touchdown to interception ratio. His ability to read defenses pre-snap and adjust plays at the line became his trademark.
Manning down the middle, Harrison, touchdown!
Williams, play pump fake, Peyton Manning throws the sideline route, he's got Marvin Harrison, touchdown!
Manning, complete, Stokely, 10-5, touchdown!
However, the competition was tough this year. Tom Brady earned 8 votes with 3,620 yards and 23 touchdowns. And then there was Jamal Lewis, who had an incredible 2,066 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns, but only received 5 votes. But circling back to McNair, his story had a tragic ending. He was found dead in 2009 at just 36 years old. The Titans honored him by putting a number 9 sticker on their helmets that whole season, a legend gone way too soon. Manning, on the other hand, went on to become the only 5-time MVP in NFL history. He retired in 2016 after winning Super Bowl 50 and now runs Omaha Productions while co-hosting the Manning Cast with his brother Eli on Monday nights. The year 2004 brought us Peyton Manning yet again, where he claimed MVP in consecutive years. He threw for 4,557 passing yards, 49 passing touchdowns, breaking Dan Marino's record at the time, and only 10 interceptions. Oh, and a ridiculous 121.1 passer rating, setting a new NFL record that would stand up until Aaron Rodgers surpassed it in 2011 with a 122.5 rating.
Manning gone for it all. Wayne, how easy do they make it look?
Colts finished that regular season 12-4 once again, and when it comes to preparation and football IQ, Manning's brain should have had its own spot in the Hall of Fame. His teammates used to share stories about how he'd call out defensive schemes before they even happened. The guy was a coach on the field, famously shouting Omaha as he stood at the line. Colts playoffs started with a wild 49-24 win over Denver, where Manning threw for 458 yards and 4 touchdowns. But then they met up with Tom Brady and the Patriots in the snow at Gillette Stadium. That 20-3 loss in the divisional round was a tough one to swallow. Manning earned 47 MVP votes that year, though, while Michael Vick, despite his electrifying 902 rushing yards and 14 passing touchdowns, barely made a mark, getting just 1 vote. Manning's got that gold jacket now, the Hall of Fame class of 2021, and still breaks down the game better than almost anybody. Between the commercials, the Manning cast, and his various business ventures, he's probably busier now than he ever was playing. In 2005, Shaun Alexander made history by becoming the only Seattle Seahawk to ever win the MVP award. He finished the season with 1,880 rushing yards, 27 rushing touchdowns, and an impressive 5.1 yards per carry. And just to flex a little bit more, he added 78 receiving yards and another touchdown through the air. The Seahawks went 13-3 that year, clinching the NFC West title and the top seed in the conference for the first time ever. Alexander led them all the way to Super Bowl 40, though they ultimately fell short against the Steelers. It was still a hell of a ride, though. As Hall of Famer Walter Jones put it, I kind of knew this guy was going to be somebody special. The NFL is all about taking your opportunities when your number's called, and when Shaun's number was called, he went out there and performed. Coming from a legend like Jones, that is some serious praise. He was the first player to ever score 15+ total touchdowns in 5 straight seasons, and with his vision and patience, once he saw a hole open up, it was over. He was gone. That 2005 season, he scored a total of 28 touchdowns, setting a record at the time, plus he averaged 117.5 rushing yards per game. MVP race was tight that year. Peyton Manning threw for 3,747 yards and 28 touchdowns, getting 26% of the votes, and Tom Brady threw for 4,110 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, grabbing 20% of the vote. But Alexander's historic season, breaking those records, leading his team to the first Super Bowl, just could not be denied. He took home 38% of the votes and the Offensive Player of the Year award as well. If you aren't already aware, running backs rarely win the MVP award in today's game, so this was a huge accomplishment for Alexander. Today, Alexander is living his best life. He's homeschooling his kids with his wife, running multiple charitable organizations like the Shaun Alexander Professional Legacy Program and Harvest Covenant. He's also a general partner at the Crimson Hawk Fund, which raised about $20 million for impact investing. And he also just got honored as the University of Alabama's homecoming Grand Marshal in October of 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the 2006 MVP, one of the best running back seasons in history, if not the best, LaDainian Tomlinson. LT set records that year with 1,815 rushing yards, 28 rushing touchdowns, which is still an NFL record to this day, and he added 508 receiving yards and 3 more touchdowns through the air.
Rivers, Tomlinson, touchdown!
Which is a total of 31 touchdowns.
And the handoff to Tomlinson. Left side, and he will gallop into the end zone. Charger fans are witnesses to history!
The Chargers went 14-2, which was the best record in the entire NFL. LT was a part of an offense that scored the most points in the entire league, even with Phillip Rivers in his first year as a starter. And don't forget about the defense. Sean Merriman and his crew piled up 61 sacks, the most in the league.
Here comes Allen. There's the pass to LaDainian Tomlinson, and there he goes on a foot race with Knight in for 6.
Now for the Chargers, threatening once again. Tomlinson to the outside. Touchdown. There's the signal.
The Rams 38, handoff Tomlinson up the middle, and he stiff arms. He's free. 20, 15, 10, 5, end zone.
teammates would tell you that LT was the hardest worker on the team, always trying to get better, always in peak condition. Now, here's the heartbreaker though. Despite that incredible regular season run, they got upset by the Patriots in the divisional round 24-21. LT did grab 88% of the MVP votes though. Drew Brees with his 4,418 passing yards and 26 touchdowns got 8%, and Peyton Manning with his 4,397 passing yards and 31 touchdowns only managed 4%. Today, LT is working as a special assistant to the Chargers owner Dean Spanos after spending 2012 to 2023 breaking down games for NFL Network. He also gives motivational speeches at Chargers training camp or working with his platform Team America, focusing on leadership and community work. And let's not forget, this man also has a Hall of Fame jacket of his own. Beyond the numbers, LT was known for his huge heart, running the Tomlinson Touching Lives Foundation, helping underprivileged kids, organizing camps, giving away holiday gifts. From MVP to community leader, that's what you call leaving a legacy. Moving on to 2007, Tom Brady earned his MVP award in style. He led the Patriots to something special that had never been done in a 16-game regular season, a perfect 16-0 record. Brady completed 68.9% of his passes, threw for 4,806 yards and 50 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions.
That's a touchdown that goes to tight end Benjamin Watson. Brady, touchdown.
When MVP voting came around, it wasn't even close. Brady grabbed 98% of the votes, leaving Brett Favre with just 2%, who threw for 4,155 yards and 28 touchdowns with 15 interceptions. Patriots rolled through the playoffs, taking down Jacksonville 31-20 and San Diego 21-12. Everybody thought this Super Bowl was going to be a victory lap, but then Eli Manning and the Giants happened in what people still call one of the biggest upsets ever. The Giants pulled off a 17-14 stunner. Their perfect season ended at 18-1. After a lot more winning and Super Bowl rings, Brady finally hung up the cleats for good in February of 2023. He traded the football field for the broadcast booth, signing a massive deal with Fox Sports. But he's not breaking down games, he's being a dad to his 3 children and getting involved in other causes. Recently teamed up with Abbott and the Big Ten Conference for the We Give Blood drive to address the U.S. blood shortage. His teammates used to say he'd outlast them all, and in a way, they were right. The guy played 23 seasons, dominated in different systems, won rings with different teams, and changed the game forever. It was due to the mental toughness, clutch performance under pressure, elite pocket presence, and skill, which cemented Brady's legacy as one of, if not the greatest of all time. In 2008 and 2009, Peyton Manning earned his 3rd and 4th MVP, continuing the dominance he first showcased in the 2003 and 2004 seasons. 2008, Manning showed why he was the comeback king. After the Colts stumbled to a 3-4 start, everybody was thinking maybe this is the year they finally fall off, but Manning had different plans, leading them to an incredible 9-game winning streak, finishing the season at 12-4. Check out these numbers: 4,002 passing yards, 27 touchdowns to just 12 interceptions, a 66.8% completion rate, and a 95 passer rating.
Play action. Looking downfield, it's going to be a touchdown. Dominic Rhodes.
Manning grabbed 64% of the votes in the MVP race, while Chad Pennington and Michael Turner each got 8%. I mean, when you lead your team to a 7-game winning streak in 5 straight seasons, that's just next level stuff. But wait, it gets even better. In 2009, Manning led the Colts to a 14-2 record with even better numbers: 4,500 passing yards, 33 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. The passer rating was a ridiculous 99.9 also.
Manning throwing, far side corner in the end zone, caught, touchdown. Going to the end zone, open is Conley, and he has the catch.
The competition in 2009 was fierce too, with Drew Brees out there slinging it with 4,388 yards and 34 touchdowns to his 11 interceptions. Then we had Phillip Rivers put up 4,254 yards with 28 touchdowns, and Brett Favre had 4,202 yards and 33 touchdowns. But Manning won it with 79% of the votes. The only downside was that they got knocked out by San Diego in overtime of the wild card round in 2008. Then in 2009, they made it all the way to the Super Bowl, but fell to Drew Brees and those Saints 31-17. First player to win 4 MVPs, set all kinds of franchise records, 12 wins in 6 straight seasons. Did it all while basically being an on-field coach. The way he'd read defenses and change plays at the line of scrimmage was why he was so special. Moving on to 2010, Tom Brady was the MVP winner, and he earned every single vote, all 100%. After a disappointing wildcard round exit in 2009, the Patriots were out to prove themselves. What Brady accomplished that year was nothing short of extraordinary. Brady finished the season with a jaw-dropping 36 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions, completing nearly 66% of his pass attempts for 3,900 yards and posting a passer rating of 111.
Brady looking. Now at the 3, he's got Welker, and he's in for the touchdown.
The record started falling. 7 straight games without a turnover, only 10 turnovers in the regular season, and a streak of 335 consecutive passes without an interception from Brady to end the year. But despite their dominance and a 14-2 record, the Patriots season ended in disappointment. In the divisional round, they were stunned, losing to the Jets 28-21 in a game where they were heavily favored to win. This loss was the last time that the Patriots missed the AFC Championship till 2019. Brady proved once again that he could dominate with any supporting cast, delivering one of the most efficient seasons in NFL history. In 2011, it was Aaron Rodgers' turn to win the MVP. He had one of the most dominant seasons ever. Fresh off a Super Bowl victory against the Steelers, Rodgers set the stage for a legacy that would include 4 MVPs, second to only Peyton Manning. Rodgers posted a staggering 68.3% completion rate, 4,643 yards, and 45 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions. His 122.5 passer rating was an NFL record and still is to this day, showing efficiency that had never been seen before. Packers steamrolled to a franchise-best 15-1 record, including an incredible 19-game win streak dating back to the 2010 season.
Second down and 2 throw. Wide open Jennings. Caught. Touchdown Packers. More flags. Play continues and touchdown. Finley at the bottom of your screen. That's where Rodgers goes for the 3rd time in this game.
But what made Rodgers truly special wasn't just the numbers, it was how he did it. He could read defenses, make adjustments, and deliver strikes with pinpoint accuracy. Packers offense set records, scoring 35-plus points in 9 games and 42-plus points in 6 games. Despite a defense ranked dead last in yards allowed, Packers led the league with 31 interceptions. Rodgers was so dominant, he claimed 96% of the MVP votes, beating out Drew Brees, who threw for 5,476 yards and 46 touchdowns. But in the divisional round, the 9-7 Giants shocked the Packers with a 37-20 win, ending their playoff run early. Despite that early exit, Rodgers' 2011 season cemented his place as one of the greatest Packers quarterbacks ever. Perfect blend of talent and mastery that elevated him beyond just being Brett Favre's successor. Fortunately, Rodgers is currently struggling on the Jets, and it looks like he may be on his way out of the league sooner rather than later. That being said, at 41 years old, he's had a hell of a career regardless. Adrian Peterson's 2012 season might just be one of the greatest of all time. Less than a year after shredding his knee, he nearly broke one of football's most untouchable records, Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record. He finished just 8 yards shy of Dickerson's all-time single-season rushing record of 2,105 yards. The Vikings were not a dominant team, though, like most of these on this list. They had Christian Ponder as their quarterback, who had not been great in his rookie season, but Peterson single-handedly carried the 2012 team to the playoffs. He finished with 348 carries, 2,097 yards, 12 touchdowns, and an outstanding 6 yards per carry.
Peterson, he's in, touchdown.
Even with Peyton Manning's stellar year in Denver, Peterson's performance was too good to ignore. What made Peterson truly special wasn't just his physical gifts. Although he did stand at 6 feet 1 inch tall and 220 pounds with sprinter speed, those were plenty impressive. It was actually his mentality, though, that stood out. This was a man who had overcome a stutter in his youth, writing about it in his book, Don't Diss My Abilities, and approached football with the same unwavering determination. When he hit the hole, he wasn't just running. He was was, as many people described it, punching linebackers in the mouth. Fast forward to 2024, and Peterson is facing a very challenging phase in his life, both personally and financially. Reports indicate that he has some financial troubles, reportedly owing over $12 million in debt. A judge has ordered him to surrender various assets to address these debts, signaling significant legal and financial troubles. Despite these difficulties, Peterson has expressed a desire to continue playing and return to the NFL, hoping to extend his career, but that seems highly unlikely at this point in time. Outside of football, Peterson has appeared on reality television, including participating in Dancing with the Stars, keeping him in the public eye. However, he has faced criticism due to reports claiming he has sold his trophies and memorabilia online to address his financial struggles, which he has publicly denied. 2013 brought Peyton Manning's 5th and final MVP trophy, but this time it was the Denver Broncos. Let's start with the numbers. 5,477 passing yards, 55 touchdowns, and only 10 interceptions, and a completion rate of 68.3. We're talking about averaging nearly 3.5 touchdown passes per game. That's not just good, that's incredible. And then there was the Broncos offense as a whole. 606 points on the season, averaging 37.9 points per game. To put that into perspective, some teams were struggling to put up that many points in multiple games. Despite facing challenges like coaching changes and injuries, Manning remained unstoppable, leading the Broncos to a 13-3 record, home field advantage in the playoffs. Those pre-snap calls became famous that year, Omaha, Omaha, as Manning would dissect defenses before the ball was even snapped. Broncos, who had been unstoppable all year long, were beaten down badly in the Super Bowl, though, 43-8 by the Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom, which was a shocking result, especially considering the Broncos had been averaging over 37 points per game. While this loss was painful, it did not diminish the brilliance Manning displayed throughout the regular season. The final score was even more surprising considering the Broncos team had only scored under 27 points one time all regular season. That should just tell you how good that Seahawks defense really was, though. There was only one vote for Tom Brady that year in the MVP race. The rest, of course, went to Manning. At age 37 and fresh off neck surgery that nearly ended his career, Peyton proved that he could still play at an unprecedented level, cementing his legacy as one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. The 2013 season may not have ended with a Super Bowl victory, but it was a career-defining year that set new standards for offensive excellence in the NFL. Now we look back to 2014. Aaron Rodgers put together one of those seasons that reminded everybody why he was considered among the elite. The numbers were outrageous: 4,381 pass yards, 38 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions, completion rate of 65.6%, and a passer rating of 112.2, were among the best in the league, and on top of that, he added 269 rushing yards.
Rodgers, quick pass, touchdown! Rodgers rolls, throws, touchdown. Randall Cobb. Looking over the middle. It is Corliss. Touchdown.
Despite the stacked competition for MVP that year, including J.J. Watt's dominant defensive campaign, DeMarco Murray's rushing brilliance, and Tom Brady's steady excellence, Rodgers stood out not only because of the numbers, but also because of how he elevated the entire Packers team. Green Bay finished with a 12-4 record, tied for the best in the NFL. They were also perfect at home, finishing with an undefeated record at Lambeau Field. Offense was rolling, with Rodgers throwing for over 4,000 yards, 2 receivers crossing the 1,000-yard mark, and a balanced rushing attack that kept defenses on edge at all times. This was Green Bay's 4th straight division title, and it looked like they were primed for another Super Bowl run. However, the 2014 season took a tragic twist in the NFC Championship game against the Seahawks. Everything was clicking for the Packers. They held a 16-0 lead at halftime and were up 19-7 with just a few minutes left in the 4th. The Super Bowl seemed like a certainty, but football can be cruel. Seahawks mounted an improbable comeback, forcing overtime and eventually winning the game at 28-22. That heartbreaking collapse, where victory slipped right through their fingertips in a matter of minutes, was a gut punch for every single Packers fan out there. Looking back on it, the 2014 season is a bittersweet chapter in Green Bay's history. On one hand, Rodgers earned his 2nd MVP award, the team tied for a franchise record with their 6th straight playoff appearance, and they were dominant throughout the regular season. On the other hand, the NFC Championship championship collapse remains a painful scar. It's a reminder that in sports, greatness doesn't always guarantee the perfect ending. One heartbreaking loss can overshadow the highs of an incredible season, leaving a legacy forever marked by that singular moment. The 2014 Packers, the regular season was legendary, but that one devastating loss will always be the defining memory of that year. Now let's talk about 2015. Cam Newton led the Panthers to a mind-blowing 15-1 record. We're talking about a season that had everybody doing the Superman celebration. Check these numbers out. 3,837 pass yards, 35 touchdowns to just 10 picks, and a 99.4 passer rating. But wait, that's just the pass game. Superman Cam added another 636 rushing yards and 10 more touchdowns on the ground. He did all this completing just under 60% of his pass attempts. Tom Brady put up some serious numbers that year. 4,770 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, and Carson Palmer was also cooking too. 4,671 yards and 35 touchdowns, but neither of them could match Cam's dual threat dominance. Panthers started that season 14-0. The best start ever by an NFC team since the merger. They did it without their star receiver Kelvin Benjamin and after losing D'Angelo Williams. No receiver that year even hit 800 yards, but Cam made it work. He had a great connection with Greg Olsen, who finished the year with over 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. In the playoffs, Cam and the Panthers just kept rolling, torching Seattle and Arizona before running into Denver's legendary defense in Super Bowl 50. The Panthers fell 24-10, joining the list of 15+ win teams that just could not seal the deal. But stats can only tell part of the story. Cam's swagger was magnetic. His teammates called it confidence, his critics called it cocky, but either way, it was contagious.
Cam Newton's gonna run, trucking right 10 to the 5, leap for the end zone, touchdown!
He'd take hits that would flatten most quarterbacks, pop up grinning, and just keep rolling. He brought energy, fun, and style to every single game and made sure the world noticed.
Drop hits the quarterback draw, somersault for the touchdown!
Now at 35 years old, Cam swapped the field for the microphone. He's a star on ESPN's First Take alongside Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp, and has a YouTube powerhouse with 1.6 million subscribers with his Funky Friday podcast. Retirement, not in his vocabulary. Cam said, "I know I've played my last piece of football, but I'll never officially retire. I'm in a happy place." 2016 brought us Matt Ryan, otherwise known as Matty Ice, making history as the first and still only Atlanta Falcon to ever win the MVP award. Ryan completed an absurd 69.9% of his pass attempts for 4,944 yards and 38 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions, racking up a 117.1 passer rating. And he did not stop there. He threw touchdown passes to 13 different players. Talk about spreading the wealth.
Wide open, Julio Jones has it, and in the end zone, touchdown Falcons.
Brady, Derek Carr, and rookie phenom Ezekiel Elliott put up great seasons in 2016, but this year was Matt Ryan's and it was no contest. The Falcons, a scoring machine, racking up 540 points, tied for 9th highest in NFL history. They went 11-5, clinched the NFC South, and scored 23 or more points in all but one game.
Escapes, gonna run, has some room, and a touchdown!
Ryan's accuracy was just on a different level that year. He averaged 9.3 yards per attempt, led the league in air yards per attempt, and threw a touchdown in all 16 games that season. Him and Julio Jones became the first quarterback wide receiver duo to combine for 500+ passing yards and 300+ receiving yards in a single game. In the playoffs, Ryan threw for over 1,000 yards with 0 interceptions, shredding Seattle 36-20 and obliterating Green Bay 44-21 to punch Atlanta's ticket to Super Bowl 51, and then 28-3. You guys all know the story, I'm sure. Fast forward to 2024, Ryan officially retired as a Falcon, signing a one-day contract on April 22nd. In October, he earned a spot in the Falcons Ring of Honor, a fitting tribute to one of Atlanta's all-time greats. Now you can find him on CBS Sports as an analyst, breaking down the game with the same precision that he once brought to the field. Through his foundation, Atlanta advanced the lives. Ryan is still making a difference off the field as well. The 2016 season was forever tied to heartbreak, but let's not forget the brilliance that we witnessed. Record-breaking efficiency, a high-flying offense, and a quarterback who elevated his team to new heights. Matty Ice earned every bit of that MVP trophy. Here we go. 2017, we have Tom Brady yet again, which saw him snag his third MVP trophy, this time at 40 years old.
The 2017 AP Most Valuable Player is Tom Brady, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Brady.
Let's break it down for you. Brady racked up 4,577 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions. Completed 66.3% of his passes and earned a 102.8 passer rating. Todd Gurley also had a monster season with the Rams, posting 1,305 rushing yards and 788 receiving yards, grabbing 16% of the votes. Carson Wentz was electric before his injury with 33 touchdowns in just 13 games with the Eagles. But make no mistake, 2017 belonged to Brady as he got 40 out of the 50 votes. The Pats won the AFC East for the 9th straight time, clinched the AFC's #1 seed, and set an NFL record with 8 consecutive 12-plus win seasons. At 40 years and 163 days old, he became the oldest quarterback to win a playoff game since Vinny Testaverde in 2007, dismantling the Titans 35-14. Then came a gritty 24-20 win over the Jags, punching the Patriots' ticket to yet another Super Bowl. Despite Brady throwing for 505 yards, which was a Super Bowl and still is a Super Bowl record to this day, a late game strip sack by Brandon Graham sealed the 41-33 loss. Go Birds, by the way. What's wild is how the Patriots kept rolling through the challenges, though. They lost tight ends coach Brian Daboll to Alabama, but seamlessly promoted Nick Caley, embodying the next man up mantra. That's the Patriot way in action right there. Even without a ring, 2017 was a masterclass in quarterbacking. While Father Time caught up to everybody else his age, Brady was out here proving the doubters wrong and collecting MVPs like it was nothing. 2018 was the year we got introduced to Patrick Mahomes, and boy, what an introduction it was. In his first season as a starter, yeah, you heard that right, first season, this kid comes out throwing 50 touchdowns like he's playing Madden on rookie mode. The numbers are just silly. 5,097 passing yards, 50 touchdowns to just his 12 interceptions, a passer rating of 113.8, and he completed 66% of his passes. When the MVP votes came in, it wasn't even close. Mahomes snagged 41 out of the 50 votes, and the voters knew they were watching something special. And the Chiefs you're wondering about, they were absolutely rolling, finishing the year with a 12-4 record, winning their 3rd straight AFC West title, and locking up home field advantage. They did all this after trading away Marcus Peters and Alex Smith, and then saying goodbye to veterans like Derek Johnson and Tamba Hali. Talk about a total rehaul. Now, what makes Mahomes different? Just ask the guys who faced him. Blaine Gabbert said it best. He has a very unique ability to see the field outside the pocket. He's one of one with the ability to do that. Justin Simmons added, you could probably cover that. It's the next 3 seconds when he extends it and keeps it alive. The way this guy feels space, it's like he's turned football into basketball, running pick and rolls with Travis Kelce. The playoffs, they were pure magic at first.
And tries to get in, and I believe he did as the official.
They finally broke that home playoff curse, beating the Colts 31-13, which was their first home playoff win since 1993. They made it all the way to their first AFC championship in 25 years, but then Brady and the Patriots did their thing in overtime, winning 37-31. These days, Mahomes isn't just dominating on the field, he's building an empire. His 15 and Mahomes Foundation is doing amazing work with kids, and he's becoming quite the sports mogul. We're talking ownership stakes in the Kansas City Royals, Sporting Kansas City Current, a pickleball team in Miami, and even Alpine Formula One racing team. 2024, he dropped a cool $5 million donation to Texas Tech, giving back to where it all started. But wait, there's even more. He's got his hands in the restaurant business too, bringing Whataburger to Kansas City and Wichita. He also made the Time 100 most influential people list multiple times in 2020, 2023, and 2024. And he's even pushing to bring a WNBA team to Kansas City. Looking back at 2018, this wasn't just a breakout season, it was the start of a dynasty. That 50 touchdown season, that was just the appetizer. Mahomes wasn't just changing the quarterback position, he was changing the entire game. And now he's changing the whole dang city of Kansas City. At 22 years old in 2019, Lamar Jackson became the youngest quarterback ever to take home the MVP trophy. Through the air, 3,127 passing yards, 36 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions, and a 113.3 passer rating with a 66.1 completion rate. But on the ground, he was even better. 1,206 rushing yards, breaking Mike Vick's QB rushing record, and 7 more touchdowns, averaging 6.9 yards per carry.
Sidesteps the man at the 3, spins in, touchdown, Lamar Jackson. An unbelievable athletic display.
Jackson throwing over the middle, touchdown.
When it came to the MVP voting, it wasn't even a competition. Jackson got every single vote. That's right, all 50 votes went to him. Unanimous. The Ravens became the first team in NFL history to average 200+ yards both passing and rushing in the same season. They also set the NFL record for team rushing yards with 3,296, scored 20+ points in every single game, and put points on the board in more than half of their total drives. We're talking about a franchise best 14-2 record, with Jackson going 13-2 in his starts. Fast forward to today, and Lamar is still doing Lamar things. Just recently, he broke the all-time career rushing record for quarterbacks and dominated on Christmas Day against the Texans.
Play action for Jackson. Pump. Jackson steps on the brakes, extending the play, throws end zone, touchdown!
He's still in Baltimore, still making defenders look silly, and still in the MVP conversation once again. Off the field, Jackson's running his Forever Dreamers Foundation, focusing on education and mentoring young people. That 2019 season might have ended sooner than everybody expected when they lost to the Titans in a divisional round, but watching Lamar that year was like seeing the future of football arrive early. All right, now let's talk about Aaron Rodgers' back-to-back MVPs in 2020 and 2021. Rodgers came out with a 48-5 touchdown to interception ratio, added a 70.7 completion rate, and a league-leading 121.5 passer rating, and it's like he turned the NFL into his own personal highlight reel. In 2020, the Packers went 13-3, leading the league with 509 points scored, and Rodgers won the MVP with 44 out of the 50 total votes, leaving Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes behind. Sure, Mahomes threw for 4,740 yards, and Allen was electric. Rodgers was unstoppable. The only downside was that they fell to Tom Brady's Bucs in the NFC Championship game. Despite their offensive dominance, Brady and company sent Green Bay packing. Rodgers came back in 2021 and said, "Oh, you like that? Well, watch this." He threw for 37 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions with a 68.9% completion rate and a 111.9 passer rating. The Packers went 13-4, making history as the first team to win 13+ games in 3 straight seasons. Tom Brady made a case that year with over 5,300 passing yards, and Cooper Kupp was rewriting records with nearly 2,000 receiving yards, along with winning the Triple Crown, but Rodgers still claims 78% of the MVP votes. Then came the heartbreak yet again. In the divisional round, the Packers were upset by the 49ers in a 13-10 stunner, with Green Bay's 32nd ranked special teams playing a huge role in the game. 2020 had more flash, bigger stats, more dominance, but 2021 was all about consistency and efficiency. Both seasons ended with playoff disappointment, though. All right, buckle up, because we're diving back into Patrick Mahomes, this time his insane 2022 MVP season. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Tyreek Hill was gone, but this man Mahomes went out and threw for 5,250 yards, breaking the league and your controller at the same time if you were up against him in Madden that year.
And on first and goal, it's over to Tony, and he tiptoes and tight ropes for a touchdown. Chiefs side. I like this offensive line. Mahomes throws, end zone, touchdown, Kansas City. Mahomes going end zone, and it's a touchdown.
Mahomes owned it with 98% of the MVP votes. Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen each snagged 1 vote, but with 41 touchdowns, a ridiculous 67.1 completion rate, and leading the Chiefs to a 14-3 record, the choice was obvious. The Chiefs had only 3 players in the NFL top 100 that year, which was their fewest since 2018. Let's not forget, this was the Chiefs' 7th straight AFC West title and their 5th consecutive AFC Championship game at Arrowhead. Just rename it to Mahomes Field already. Come on. Mahomes, on a bum ankle, took down the Bengals in the AFC Championship 23-20.
Mahomes can move. He's got time just to throw it to the end zone. And is it caught? Tony!
Then came the Super Bowl. Facing Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, it was a heavyweight showdown for the ages. Mahomes took down the Super Bowl MVP, becoming the first player since Kurt Warner in the 1999 season to win both the regular season and Super Bowl MVP in the same year. They also won the game, of course, 38-35. As for 2023 goes, Lamar Jackson just recently made history, becoming the youngest two-time MVP since the NFL merger. With a 67.2% completion rate, nearly 3,700 pass yards, and 7 interceptions, Lamar played like he had a point to prove.
Jackson looking end zone. He's got a man. Touchdown!
This is the 12th play of this drive. Lamar keeps, looks for a block, gets one at the 5, and the cutback, and he's in.
Ravens have it at the 10. Jackson takes it himself for the touchdown.
Now, there were some guys who had incredible seasons too that year. Dak Prescott was out here throwing for 4,500 yards and 36 touchdowns. And, of course, Christian McCaffrey was basically playing both running back and receiver for the 49ers, putting up over 2,000 total yards. But Lamar's impact was just different. Let's talk about this Ravens squad quickly. They became the first team ever to lead the league in sacks, points allowed, and takeaways all in the same season. Oh, and they set a record with 10 wins against teams with winning records. Craziest part is that they did all of this while battling different injuries. The running backs were not all healthy, Mark Andrews missed a good chunk of the season, and they still steamrolled through the league. It was like Lamar was out there with cheat codes making defenses look silly. Playoffs started out like a dream for them. They absolutely demolished the Texans 34-10. Then they hosted their first AFC championship game in franchise history. But even with that, Lamar couldn't take down good old Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Even though they lost in the playoffs once again, what makes this season even more impressive is how they dominated the other division leaders. 6 wins against teams that went 3 or more games over 500 is just insane. And finally, we've hit the 2024 season, and this MVP race is insane. Josh Allen's on fire right now, leading the charge and looking to bring Buffalo its first ever Super Bowl. But don't count out Lamar Jackson, who's gunning for his 3rd MVP trophy, joining legends like Brady and Favre. Let's talk about running backs. We have Derrick Henry, who was on fire early, but now Saquon Barkley's making a late push in Philly, aiming to become just the 5th running back this century to win MVP, after also becoming the 9th player in NFL history to surpass 2,000 rushing yards in a single season. Winning the Heisman is supposed to mean that you are the best player in college football, but that success in college doesn't always translate to the NFL level. Today we're going to answer the age-old question: what happened to every quarterback to win the Heisman Trophy since 1970? Starting off, we have Jim Plunkett, who tore up the Pac-8 with a cannon for an arm, throwing for over 2,700 yards in his Heisman winning season, while also leading the conference in passing every year that he played. He got drafted first overall by the Patriots, but they were a mess, and Plunkett looked completely lost out there, especially in 1972, where he threw just 8 touchdowns compared to 25 interceptions. He didn't have a winning season in 5 years with the Patriots, and by 1978, he was riding the bench in Oakland, throwing 0 passes. At 30 years old, his career looked dead. Then, Dan Pastorini broke his leg during the 1980 season, and suddenly Plunkett became Oakland's starter. And at that moment, a new player was born. 2 Super Bowl rings and a Super Bowl MVP later, Plunkett pulled off maybe the most unlikely comeback ever.
When they give the Comeback Player of the Year award, Jim Plunkett is like the poster child for that.
In 1971, we had Pat Sullivan winning the Heisman, leading the SEC with 20 touchdown passes. Atlanta grabbed him in the 2nd round, but Sullivan didn't start one game until his 3rd season. When he finally got his chance in 1974, the guy managed just 4 career starts in total over the next 2 seasons. By 28 years old, after trying and failing to play for Washington and San Francisco, he was done. His career numbers were just 5 touchdowns to 16 interceptions, which is pretty painful. But he later did find his real calling on the sidelines, working his way up as the head coach of Samford College. Now, it took over a decade, but a quarterback finally won the Heisman again when Doug Flutie showed his magic at Boston College in 1984. That Hail Mary against Miami made him a legend, and his 1984 season was incredible. Over 3,400 yards passing and averaging 314 yards per game, the Heisman Trophy was a lock, but the pros, not so much.
Have you already reconciled yourself to the probability that the pros will probably pass you by?
I'd love to take an opportunity to try in pro football, but from what I've heard and people have told me, I really don't think it's going to be in the future for me.
Every NFL team had the same worry, that the guy was just too short. But the USFL offered him $7 million to become the highest paid rookie ever. Because of that, he didn't get drafted in the NFL until the 11th round, basically being an afterthought. Well, listen, long before the USFL folded, Flutie bounced around the NFL getting traded and cut. Most guys would have quit then, but he went to Canada instead. Then, at 36 years old, he signed with the Bills, made the Pro Bowl, and won Comeback Player of the Year. I mean, what a story. You just don't get much more impressive than that in terms of heart and determination. And he kept playing too. That final season in 2005, he was 43 years old. In 1986, Tampa Bay thought that they had found their franchise guy in Vinny Testaverde. The Miami star threw 26 touchdown passes with just 9 interceptions in his Heisman year. But pretty quickly in the pros, Testaverde became the interception king, a title that no quarterback wants. He threw 35 picks in his second year, leading the league in the worst way possible. In fact, he led the NFL in interceptions 4 times, and he didn't have a winning record as a starter until his 8th season. Not exactly what you want from your first overall pick. But just like Flutie, the guy kept on playing and making money. He retired as a 2-time Pro Bowler after 21 seasons in the league. Andre Ware was putting up video game numbers at Houston. 4,699 yards and 46 touchdowns. Detroit grabbed him 7th overall in the 1990 draft. The problem was that Ware only knew one system: Houston's run-and-shoot offense. In Detroit's offense, he looked kinda lost. He only had 3 wins in 6 starts over 4 seasons in the league, which pretty much tells you everything you need to know. After bouncing around Canada and even Germany chasing that college magic, Ware landed in the broadcast booth. He's right up there with the most disappointing Heisman winners of all time when it comes to actually playing in the pros. Moving on, we have Ty Detmer's 1990 season, which was absolutely insane. 5,188 yards and 41 touchdowns at BYU, including an upset win over the #1 seeded Miami Hurricanes. But he still fell to the 9th round of the NFL draft. Scouts said he was too small, threw too many interceptions, and was too much of a system guy. And to be fair, the guy did throw 65 interceptions in 4 years at college. He finally got a bit of a shot in 1996 playing for the Eagles, and in 11 starts he went 7-4 and led the Eagles to the playoffs. Sure, they ended up losing to San Francisco, but after so many years of waiting, the guy at least proved that he belonged. Detmer spent about half the next season as Philly's starter, but he didn't see much success, unfortunately, and slowly faded out of the league. Gino Torretta is another guy who got completely ignored on draft day. After leading Miami with 3,060 yards and 19 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions in his Heisman year, he dropped to the 7th round. Minnesota thought maybe they could develop him, and that unfortunately never happened. Torretta played 1 game with the Vikings, then 1 more with Seattle 4 years later. His entire NFL career consisted of just 41 passing yards. The guy who led one of college football's best programs ended up being a financial advisor, just like most other 9-to-5ers, which just goes to show you, sometimes that jump to the pros is more like jumping off a cliff. Charlie Ward, on the other hand, got to choose between 2 sports at the pro level. After winning the Heisman and Florida State's first title, he could either chase his NFL dreams or play point guard for the New York Knicks, who just drafted him in the 1st round. The NFL made it easy on him. Scouts saw him as a 3rd to 5th round pick. Ward's response, 1st round or I'm out. So when nobody stepped up to take him, he walked away from football completely. Ward became the only Heisman winner to play pro basketball instead of football. While other quarterbacks fought for roster spots, this guy was running plays for the Knicks. In 1996, Danny Wuerffel was Steve Spurrier's dream quarterback at Florida. He threw 39 touchdown passes in his Heisman year while leading the Gators to their first ever title. New Orleans grabbed him in the 4th round, but his pinpoint accuracy seemed to be gone at that point. Wuerffel went 0-2 as a rookie with twice as many interceptions as touchdowns. Over 6 seasons, he threw just 12 touchdown passes total and played for 4 different teams. After football, Wuerffel found his real purpose in life with Desire Street Ministries in New Orleans, helping rebuild poor neighborhoods, so at least he won off the field. Chris Weinke took the weirdest path to the Heisman ever. After 6 years playing minor league baseball, he enrolled at Florida State at the age of 25, which is basically ancient for college football. I mean, even entering the NFL at 25 is considered old for a rookie, but the guy threw for 4,167 yards and put up 33 touchdowns in his Heisman year. Carolina thought that his maturity and baseball background would actually help him. Instead, Weinke went 1-14 as a starter after missing a game in week number 9, which is the worst record in Panthers history. 2 wins in 20 career starts pretty much says it all. In fact, that's the worst winning percentage in NFL history for players who have at least played 18 games. He didn't end up playing again after 2007, but after he retired, he did find success in business and coaching. Meanwhile, Eric Crouch was standing on business at Nebraska. He was a dual threat guy and had 1,115 rushing yards in 2001. St. Louis drafted him in the 3rd round, thinking that he would be a good fit for the greatest show on turf, Rams. But here's the thing, they wanted him to play receiver. Crouch didn't like the idea of switching positions at all. Then a leg injury killed his rookie year before it ever started, and he retired without taking 1 NFL snap. But he kept chasing the dream everywhere. NFL Europe, Canada, you name it. Now he sells playground equipment in Omaha. In 2002, we finally got a guy who turned into a legitimate weapon in the NFL. Carson Palmer went 1st overall to Cincinnati and led the Bengals to their first playoff appearance in 15 years. He made 2 Pro Bowls with them, and things were looking pretty solid. He suffered a brutal knee injury in the 2005 playoffs that could have ended everything, but Palmer fought back. Then after he parted ways with Cincy, he reinvented himself in Arizona, leading the Cardinals to an NFC Championship game at the age of 36.
He put us on his back, and he took us for a ride this year. He was amazing.
Palmer retired after 14 seasons with over 46,000 passing yards and 294 touchdowns. But I will say that Heisman winner to NFL success thing really didn't last too long, because Jason White dominated college football with 40 touchdowns to win his Heisman in 2003. Then after a 2004 campaign that saw him come in 3rd for Heisman voting, draft day came around and went without his name being called at all. Basically, everybody knew his knees were done. Tennessee finally threw him a contract in 2005, giving him one last shot at his dream. He showed up ready to prove everybody wrong, but his body just didn't allow him to do so. 3 months later, White retired before taking 1 NFL snap. He was the only Heisman winner who tried to go pro but never made it at any level. Now he runs memorabilia stores in Oklahoma, along with owning a few other companies. Okay, for 2004, we're heading back to USC now, where Matt Leinart had some pretty big shoes to fill. And he really did a solid job in college. Leinart was great every season at USC with 99 touchdown passes over 3 years. But in the NFL, Leinart peaked as a rookie with 11 touchdowns and 12 picks. Yeah, when that's your peak, you know things are not going too well. He basically rode the bench behind Kurt Warner in Arizona. Then when Kurt Warner retired, it was supposed to be his moment to shine, but he lost the job to Derek Anderson. That pretty much tells you how far this guy had fallen. Troy Smith's Heisman season was one of the most dominant that we have ever seen, with over 91% of first place votes, a record that stood for 13 years. Then Florida destroyed Ohio State 41-14 and his draft stock plummeted. Smith finished that game with only 35 passing yards and negative 29 rushing yards. At 6 feet tall, Smith was already fighting height concerns when Baltimore grabbed him in the 5th round, and then when Joe Flacco showed up, everybody forgot about Smith entirely. His best moment came in San Francisco, where he outdueled Sam Bradford in an overtime win, throwing for 356 yards without an interception. For that one game, Smith looked like the guy that fans hoped he would be. Then he faded into Canadian football. Okay, now we have a pretty popular name here. Where do we even start with Tim Tebow? It's hard to find anybody who put up numbers like Tebow's Heisman season. 32 passing touchdowns and 23 rushing. He became the first sophomore to ever win the award and became known for his insane will to win.
Tebow, flushed again. He'll keep it. Tim on the run. Whoa, head-on collision.
He was about as good of a college player as you could possibly get, but scouts were worried about his throwing motion and whether he could read NFL defenses correctly. Denver took him 25th anyways, and in 2011, Tebow made everybody believe, or at least made everybody watch. His mechanics were unorthodox to say the least, but he did lead the Broncos to the playoffs and shocked Pittsburgh with an 80-yard overtime bomb to Demaryius Thomas. Then Peyton Manning came to town and Tebow's career was basically over. He tried baseball, broadcasting, whatever, but I've got to admit, it's kind of a shame that he didn't get another shot at being a starter somewhere with a full offseason, but maybe it's for the best. All right, moving on to the 2008 winner. Sam Bradford had 50 touchdown passes, only 8 interceptions, and over 4,700 yards to win the thing pretty convincingly. The Rams made him the easiest first pick ever, basically, and handed him a $78 million contract with $50 million guaranteed. But that contract became the poster child for why rookie deals needed a change. Bradford kept getting hurt, missing huge chunks of time in 2011 and 2013. In the end, he played for a bunch of different teams, but his best year was in Minnesota, where he had a 71.6% completion rate to lead the league. But even then, the Vikings went 7-8 in games that he started in, and at the end of the day, as accurate as he could be when it was all going right, he was basically another Heisman bust. But you can't say that same thing about the next guy on our list. Cam Newton ran for nearly 1,500 yards and 20 touchdowns at Auburn during his Heisman season, while throwing for another 30. Then he showed up to the NFL and threw for 400 yards in back-to-back games as a rookie.
On the third down, here comes the blitz. Newton puts it up. He's got a man, and he completes it. Steve Smith, touchdown, Carolina.
Newton's 2015 MVP season was one of the most dominant in recent memory. 15 wins, 45 total touchdowns, and the kind of swagger that just made every Panthers game so much more entertaining to watch. That Super Bowl loss to Denver really hurt, and he never really lived down the footage of him not diving for that fumble, and injuries eventually caught up to him. But we've covered 40 years of Heisman Trophy winners so far, and he's at the top of our list as it stands in terms of impact on the game. The 2012 draft was one of the most exciting for quarterbacks in a long time. You had Andrew Luck going first, but RG3's speed and arm talent had Washington trading up to grab him second overall. And his rookie year looked awesome. They won the division title, he won Rookie of the Year, and in many ways, he looked better than Andrew Luck.
Perfect on the year, and goal to goal, and still perfect. A long look, and fires, touchdown, Washington.
Then that playoff game against Seattle happened. Griffin's knee buckled and everything changed. He was never really the same after tearing his ACL and LCL, and the coaches were scared to let him loose after that. Plus, without the mobility, you could tell he really struggled reading defenses. Kirk Cousins took his job, Griffin bounced around as a backup, and then became an ESPN analyst until they fired him in 2024. These days, he's got a pretty good podcast that you can actually find on YouTube. Johnny Football is another guy who was just electric in college. He had over 1,400 rushing yards while also throwing for over 3,700. Pretty much everybody loved to tune in and watch him scramble around making magic happen.
Snap from Patrick Lewis. 4-man Alabama rush. Got him. No, they didn't. Oh my gracious. How about that?
After becoming the first freshman to ever win the Heisman Trophy, Cleveland grabbed him 22nd overall, hoping to bottle up that college magic. Instead, they got chaos. Manziel went 0-2 as a rookie with more bad news headlines than touchdowns.
The Cleveland Browns have confirmed to CNN Sports that quarterback Johnny Manziel entered a treatment program on Wednesday.
After just 6 starts in 9 games in year number 2, he was done. The CFL actually tried to give him another shot, but the magic was gone. Basically, he was never ready to even try and make it in the pros. Jameis Winston made history as the youngest Heisman winner ever, leading Florida State to a perfect season and a national championship. Tampa Bay grabbed him first overall in 2015, betting on that arm strength and clutch factor. But Winston's NFL career has been kinda crazy to say the least. His 5,000-yard season in 2019 sums it up perfectly. Yeah, he did lead the league in passing yards, but he also led the league in interceptions with 30. In the years since, his speeches have become memes, and his decision-making has stayed, let's just say, questionable the whole time. Last season in Cleveland, Winston showed that he was still the same guy. In Week 13 against the Broncos, he threw for 497 yards and 4 touchdowns. Then he killed drives with awful interceptions that basically cost them the game. But I will tell you guys one thing right now. If you are starting a wide receiver in fantasy football and Jameis Winston is throwing him the ball, you know damn well he's getting you some points. But at least Jameis is still trying to make plays, unlike the next guy on our list. Marcus Mariota's Oregon offense was awesome to watch. 4,454 yards and 42 touchdowns with only 4 interceptions in 2014. Tennessee grabbed him second overall, and in his first NFL start, it was literally perfect. A 158.3 passer rating against Tampa Bay had everybody thinking the Titans made the correct choice.
On the play action, it's Mariota to Kendall Wright. Wright is off to the races, and it's the first touchdown of Marcus Mariota's career.
But that perfection didn't last long. Injuries and inconsistency killed what looked promising, and even his best season in 2016 couldn't get the Titans into the playoffs. Now he's been a backup, bouncing between Las Vegas, Atlanta, Philly, and Washington. He's 34-40 as a starter with decent numbers but 0 playoff success, but I think it's safe to say it's pretty unlikely that he's going to win a starting job again. Okay, nearly 50 years into this thing and we're getting into the gold standard of players, which is kind of funny when you think about how everybody told Lamar Jackson to switch to wide receiver coming out of college. A whole lot of people thought Lamar just wouldn't be able to make it as a pro quarterback. And after going through the list of Heisman failures so far, I guess you could see where they were coming from, but Lamar wasn't having any part of that.
But I'm a quarterback. That's all I've been all my life. I don't know where it comes from, but I'm here to be a quarterback, not anything else.
And he's proved everybody wrong in the best possible way. His 2019 MVP season was legendary. 36 passing touchdowns and over 1,200 rushing yards while leading Baltimore to the top seed in the AFC.
He made pro football look like high school highlights. Like he's just doing stuff out there that there's not many guys that can do that.
He's still getting better too. He doesn't quite have Vic's insane burst, but his elusiveness might even be better. After 2 league MVPs, he's proven dual threat quarterbacks can dominate at the very highest level. And he might be the best mobile quarterback that we have ever seen. Baker Mayfield walked on at Texas Tech, transferred to Oklahoma, and became the first walk-on ever to win the Heisman Trophy. Cleveland made him the first overall pick, hoping his swagger could finally break their quarterback curse. And to be honest, his rookie year was solid. He set the rookie touchdown record while ending Cleveland's huge losing streak dating back to 2016. In 2020, the Browns made the playoffs and even won their first playoff game since 1994. But in 2022, Cleveland traded for Deshaun Watson anyways, and for a minute it looked like Baker would never get another shot. Then he had his special game-winning drive with the Rams, and the Bucs threw him a lifeline, and the funny thing is, he's become the quarterback that the Browns really thought that they were going to get. Some people are even predicting that he might be an MVP candidate in 2025. And meanwhile, Deshaun Watson, well, there's just nothing good to say about that whole situation. Oklahoma had back-to-back Heisman winners when Kyler Murray replaced Baker Mayfield. He had 4,361 passing yards plus just over 1,000 rushing. The Oakland Athletics also drafted him 9th overall in the MLB. Arizona took him 1st overall anyways, making him the first guy ever drafted in the first round of both sports. Murray's been solid when he's healthy. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year, made 2 Pro Bowls, thrown for over 19,000 passing yards so far, but injuries just keep killing his momentum. In 2024, he finally played a full season again, so hopefully that can become more of a trend. With Marvin Harrison Jr. looking jacked and ready for year number 2, and them already starting out 1-0 at the time of making this video, the Cardinals could be a contender in the NFC West. Joe Burrow's 2019 season was arguably the greatest college performance ever. Over 5,600 passing yards, 60 touchdowns, undefeated, and a national championship. The jump from 16 touchdowns the year before to 60 is actually insane. Cincinnati grabbed him 1st overall, and Burrow immediately threw himself into the mix as one of the best pure passers in the NFL. As of right now, he's got the highest completion percentage in league history, and even Peyton Manning calls him his favorite quarterback to watch. The dude's just clutch when it matters the most.
I don't think it's possible to be any cooler than him when those moments come around.
If he had a defense, he would probably have been MVP last year. Oh, actually, he would have been MVP last year. The real sign of his quality is in those 2 losses to Baltimore, who were pretty much one of the best teams in the league last season. Burrow threw for 820 yards and 9 touchdowns in those games with only 1 interception against them. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Bengals dominate in 2025, but their defense hasn't changed much, so we're just going to have to see what happens. In 2021, it was Bryce Young's Heisman year. He broke Alabama's single-game passing record with 559 yards and looked like everything that you wanted in a modern quarterback. I mean, the guy was mobile, accurate, and came through in the clutch moments. He finished with 4,872 yards and 47 touchdowns. Carolina clearly loved that and made him the first overall pick, thinking that they'd finally found the guy to replace Cam Newton. Well, that has not gone to plan so far. Young went 2-16 as a starter and got benched after just 18 games. His confidence at that point was totally shot, with 3 picks and 0 touchdowns to start 2024. His quarterback rating was terrible, and he was on the road to looking like a huge bust.
One of the most lasting images that I've seen in the first 2 weeks is in the first week, Dave Canales went over to the bench where Bryce Young had just turned over the football yet again. And he sat down next to Bryce Young, stood next to him, and Bryce Young looked like a broken quarterback.
But then something just clicked late last season. Young fought his way back to the starting job and finished very strong with 7 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions over the last 3 games, plus 3 rushing touchdowns and 2 overtime wins. We're going to have to analyze what he does in 2025 to really see what he's made of. Caleb Williams put up such good numbers at USC that people started calling him generational. Chicago took him first overall because the Bears were desperate for a franchise quarterback, and Williams looked like the perfect guy to finally end their nightmare at the position. But his rookie year was basically a masterclass in growing pains. Williams went 5-12 while throwing 20 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, which is pretty solid for a rookie, but not what Chicago fans were hoping for. He did start to figure it out as time went on though. He had 10 touchdowns with 0 picks from weeks 12 to 16, but unfortunately the Bears still lost all 5 games. Williams was at his best when everything broke down and had to make magic happen. That's when you saw the arm talent and the athleticism that made him the top overall pick. Chicago switched around their offensive line this year, so his second season should hopefully be a lot better. One of the problems that Caleb had is that Jayden Daniels, who was picked right after him, just looked so good. He had one of the cleanest Heisman seasons you'll ever see. 40 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions while rushing for 1,134 yards and 10 more touchdowns. Washington grabbed him second overall, hoping this dual threat guy could turn their franchise around after years of mediocrity. And the turnaround was instant. I mean, he looked like a 10-year veteran from day one, setting rookie records with a 69% completion rate and 12 fourth quarter touchdown passes. His calmness in crunch time was just unreal in 2024.
Stops, cuts back, dropped the ball, picks it up, throws it towards the end zone, touchdown!
He's the modern NFL quarterback. Like, he's what everybody's looking for.
Washington went 12-5 and made it to the NFC Championship for the first time since 1991. Daniels threw for 822 yards and 5 touchdowns in the playoffs and also won Rookie of the Year. Basically, the next Heisman winning quarterback is going to have big shoes to fill. I think this list just goes to show you that winning the Heisman doesn't guarantee NFL success. In fact, I think it's just the opposite. It guarantees you expectations that you might never meet. They were supposed to be unstoppable, the kind of running backs who would dominate the NFL for years. But since 1970, only a handful of Heisman winners have actually done that. So in today's video, we're looking at all 20 of them to find out who lived up to the hype and who did not. First up, we've got Johnny Rodgers, and to be honest, I almost didn't include him because he was mostly a receiver, but he did play a decent amount of running back during his Heisman year, as well as returning kicks. The guy shredded defenses, racking up 942 receiving yards, 267 rushing yards, and 15 total touchdowns in 1972 to win the Heisman. He was drafted by San Diego 25th overall, but when the Chargers offered what he called fourth-round money, Rodgers took his game to Canada instead. He played in the CFL for 4 years, becoming an all-star every single season before eventually returning to the NFL in 1977. Unfortunately, injuries wrecked everything he had going. Rodgers dealt with a severe kneecap injury in 1978 that put him out of commission. By the time of his retirement, he had just 234 receiving yards and 49 rushing yards over 2 NFL seasons. Rodgers did stay busy after his playing days though, becoming a businessman and running the Johnny Rodgers Youth Foundation to support education and youth development programs. Here's another guy who wasn't just a running back. In fact, his coach at Penn State had him playing defensive back to start off because Franco Harris and Lydell Mitchell were already in the backfield. Then those guys graduated and Cappelletti got his shot. Right away, he was awesome. In 1972, he racked up 1,117 rushing yards and 13 total touchdowns. But his Heisman year was even better. 1,522 yards and 17 rushing touchdowns, leading Penn State to a 12-0 record. The Rams grabbed him 11th overall, expecting that dominance to continue, but instead, he had just 198 yards and 0 touchdowns as a rookie. He did improve as time went on, but never found that college magic in the pros, and he retired with under 3,000 rushing yards. In 1974 and 1975, we had the first and the only guy to win the Heisman Trophy twice. And Archie Griffin had 31 straight games with over 100 rushing yards, which is still an NCAA record today. I mean, he averaged 6.1 yards per carry over 4 college seasons. Bengals took him 24th overall, thinking that they had a sure thing. His rookie year looked solid enough, 625 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then everything fell apart. After those 3 rushing touchdowns as a rookie, Griffin wouldn't score another rushing touchdown until 1981. Just 2,808 yards and 13 total touchdowns over the course of 7 NFL seasons. Just goes to show you how hard it can really be for these guys to translate that college success to the NFL level. But what happens when a Heisman winner actually lives up to the hype? Well, Tony Dorsett is your answer. He wasn't messing around in 1976. The guy absolutely demolished defenses for 1,948 yards and 21 touchdowns, getting more than 83% of the first place Heisman votes. The Cowboys grabbed him 2nd overall, and you could tell right away that this guy was different. Dorsett ran for 1,007 yards and had 13 total touchdowns, including an 84-yard touchdown run that was the longest in the NFL that year. In week number 12 against Philadelphia, he torched them for 206 yards in a 24-14 win. To top it all off, in that rookie season, he also helped the Cowboys win the Super Bowl. Dorsett ran for 66 yards and a touchdown in Super Bowl 12, capping off an offensive Rookie of the Year season that announced that he was legit. Over the course of 12 years, he racked up 12,739 rushing yards and 90 total touchdowns, earning himself 4 Pro Bowl selections and eventually landing himself in Canton. Now, speaking of living up to the hype, Earl Campbell took it to an entirely different level. At Texas in 1977, he bulldozed through defenses for 1,744 yards and 18 rushing touchdowns, winning the Heisman easily. The Houston Oilers made him the 1st overall pick, and right off the bat, people questioned that decision. But what followed might be the most dominant start to an NFL career by any running back ever. Campbell's rookie season was absolutely insane. 1,450 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns. He finished first team All-Pro, won Offensive Rookie of the Year, won Offensive Player of the Year, and finished 2nd in MVP voting. Then he did something even crazier. He got even better. For 3 straight years, Campbell led the league in rushing yards and won Offensive Player of the Year. He won MVP in 1979 and finished 2nd again the very next season. And when you watch the highlights, what really jumps off the screen is that the guy ran like a freaking train, trucking linebackers and safeties who were even dumb enough to step in front of him. Campbell's peak was so high that people really forget how quickly it ended. He had 5 1,000-yard seasons in his career, which seems impossible for a guy that dominant. Sad part is that the punishing running style that made him unstoppable also took a huge toll on his body. By 2001, at just 46 years old, Campbell could barely close his fist due to severe arthritis. The good news is that nobody should ever forget this legend's name because he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1991, and it was well deserved. After winning the 1978 Heisman Trophy with 1,762 yards and 20 touchdowns, Billy Sims nearly ran it back and came second in voting in 1979. He actually had more touchdowns on less carries that year, but Charles White beat him out, who we're going to talk about in a minute. He led the league with 1,303 yards and 13 touchdowns as a rookie, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. He even helped the Lions reach the playoffs in 1983. And I do know the Lions technically made the playoffs in 1982, but that was only because the strike-shortened season kind of messed with the playoff format. Everything was rolling until October 21st, 1984 against Minnesota. He suffered a horrible knee injury that ended his career. The sad thing is, he just set the team's all-time rushing record as well. After retiring, his financial troubles got so bad he eventually had to sell his Heisman Trophy, which is just awful. Browns took him 27th overall, but his rookie season was anything but ideal. Just 279 yards and 5 touchdowns in 14 games. White did have one brilliant season in 1987 though, leading the league with 1,374 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns. That was it. Sadly, he dealt with dementia that doctors linked to his playing days, which is just terrible. He ended up passing away in 2023, just 11 days before his 65th birthday. Moving on to 1980, George Rogers had a monster Heisman season with 1,781 yards at South Carolina. The Saints grabbed him first overall and immediately got what they paid for. Rogers exploded for 1,674 rushing yards as a rookie, leading the entire league, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, making the Pro Bowl and earning himself first-team All-Pro honors. He also made the Pro Bowl again in year number 2 despite the strike-shortened season, and had another standout year in 1986, leading the league with 18 rushing touchdowns. Rogers ended up retiring with 7,176 rushing yards, 54 touchdowns, and a Super Bowl ring. Not too bad, but not as good as the next guy up on our list. At USC, Marcus Allen destroyed everybody in 1981 with 2,342 rushing yards and 23 total touchdowns, winning the Heisman over Herschel Walker. The Raiders grabbed him 10th overall, and Allen's rookie season was great even during that strike-shortened 9-game year. He racked up 1,098 yards from scrimmage and 14 total touchdowns, leading the league in both categories. He made the Pro Bowl, first-team All-Pro, won Offensive Rookie of the Year, and was third in MVP voting, all during his first season. But Allen was just getting started. In 1985, he won the league MVP after rushing for 1,759 yards and 2,314 total yards from scrimmage. Over 16 seasons, he's had 12,243 rushing yards, which is 14th all-time, along with 6 Pro Bowls, a Super Bowl championship, and eventually a spot in Canton. But the next guy up, if we're talking about college football, he raised the bar even higher, because Herschel Walker dominated for 3 straight years like no one before or since. He led the SEC in rushing every season, finishing 3rd in Heisman voting, then 2nd, and finally winning the award with 1,752 yards and 16 touchdowns. But instead of entering the NFL draft, Walker signed with the USFL's New Jersey Generals. He torched that league for 3 years, finishing with an MVP season where he rushed for 2,411 yards in 1985. When he finally decided to join the NFL, he was drafted 114th overall by the Cowboys. Obviously pretty low for a Heisman winner, but by that point, everybody was worried about the mileage on his body. Walker's NFL career started strong with 1,574 yards from scrimmage as a rookie, and he had 2 more seasons with at least 1,500 yards from scrimmage.
Snap is back. Handoff, Walker up the middle. 10, 5, touchdown, Herschel Walker.
But he's probably most famous for his trade to Minnesota, which became the most lopsided deal in NFL history, giving Dallas the draft picks that they needed to build their 1990s dynasty. Walker finished with solid numbers, 8,225 rushing yards and 13,084 total yards from scrimmage. But you always wonder what could have been if he'd gone straight to the NFL after that dominant college career. In 1983, Mike Rozier shredded defenses for 2,148 yards and 29 touchdowns at Nebraska, averaging an absurd 7.8 yards per carry while winning the Heisman. Just like Walker, Rozier chose the USFL over the NFL, going first overall to Pittsburgh. He had solid USFL numbers before eventually joining the Oilers in 1985. His NFL career never quite caught fire though. He only had 2 Pro Bowl appearances, one 1,000-yard season, and retired with just 4,462 rushing yards, which would be fine numbers for about any other guy, but not a Heisman winner. Then we had Bo Jackson, and we've covered him a lot before on this channel, but the guy was just on another level when it comes to his athleticism. His 1,786 yards and 17 touchdowns at Auburn earned him the Heisman, narrowly beating out Chuck Long from Iowa. But those numbers barely scratched the surface of what made Bo so special. Bucs drafted him first overall, but Jackson had other plans. He refused to sign, choosing to play baseball with the Kansas City Royals instead. When he finally joined the Raiders in 1987, the numbers didn't exactly jump off the screen. Just 2,782 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns over 4 NFL seasons. But Bo Jackson was never about the numbers. He was a human highlight reel who ran through defenders like they were practice dummies. If anybody ever passed the eye test, it was Bo. But speaking of the eye test, 1988 might have given us the best college season of all time, and Barry Sanders was nothing like Bo Jackson. In fact, he was nothing like any running back who had come before him. Sanders barely played at Oklahoma State until 1988, sitting behind Thurman Thomas for 2 years, but even then, people knew what was coming.
We were getting ready to play the University of Oklahoma, and Barry Switzer, who's the head coach at University of Oklahoma, says, whatever you do, don't hurt Thurman. I was like, okay.
When he finally got to start, he exploded for 2,628 rushing yards and 37 touchdowns, making him the no-doubt Heisman choice. The Lions grabbed him 3rd overall, and Sanders immediately showed he was different. His rookie season produced 1,470 yards and 14 touchdowns, earning first-team All-Pro honors and Offensive Rookie of the Year. But that was just the beginning. Sanders made the Pro Bowl and All-Pro teams every single year that he played. He won MVP in 1997 and Offensive Player of the Year 2 times. When he finally hung up his cleats, he had 15,269 rushing yards in just 10 seasons, and he's still 4th on the all-time rushing list. I don't know about you guys, but more than anyone else I've ever seen, Sanders ran like he was a Madden player with cheat codes. He'd disappear into a pile of defenders and somehow come out on the other side having gained 7 or 8 yards on a play that he should have lost 3. And he walked away on top on his own terms in a way that a lot more guys are starting to do today. After Barry, we had to wait 6 years before another running back won the Heisman. Rashawn Salaam burst onto the scene with 2,055 yards and 24 touchdowns at Colorado, beating out Bijan Carter and Steve McNair for the Heisman. The Bears selected him 21st overall, and his rookie season looked promising with 1,074 yards and 10 touchdowns. The warning signs were certainly there. He lost 8 fumbles and averaged just 3.6 yards per carry. Injuries, those fumbling issues, and marijuana troubles threw his career completely off course pretty quickly. He never rushed for more than 500 yards after his rookie year and was out of the league after 1999. Tragically, Salaam took his own life in 2016 at just 42 years old. Rest in peace. Eddie George had been solid at Ohio State in 1994, but his Heisman season in 95 was special. 1,826 yards and 24 total touchdowns. The Oilers drafted him 14th overall, and George immediately became their workhorse back. His 1,368 rushing yards as a rookie earned him Offensive Rookie of the Year honors, and he was just getting started. George's peak came in 2000 when he led the league with 403 carries, grinding out 1,509 yards and 14 touchdowns while finishing third in MVP voting and also leading the Titans to a first-place finish in the AFC Central Division.
Did he average 5 yards, 6 yards a carry for you? No. He was a bulldozer.
The guy was legendary for his durability, and the way that Titans fans chanted his name became one of the most epic sounds in Nashville. George helped carry Tennessee to Super Bowl 34, rushing for 95 yards and scoring 2 touchdowns in that championship game. He retired with 10,441 rushing yards and 78 total touchdowns, and today, he's the head coach at Bowling Green. Okay, let's move on to 1998, because if you're building a Mount Rushmore of college running backs, Ricky Williams is probably going to be on your list. Williams dominated at Texas, especially in those last 2 years, capping it off with 2,124 yards and 28 total touchdowns in 1998. Then we had Mike Ditka kind of lose his mind. He traded away every single remaining draft pick in 1999, plus some picks the next year, making Williams the only player the Saints drafted that season. The pressure was obviously enormous, and Williams was never going to live up to all that hype. In that rookie year, he had just 884 yards and 2 touchdowns. But after 3 seasons in New Orleans, Williams finally found new life in Miami during the 2002 season, leading the league with 1,853 yards and earning his only Pro Bowl appearance. Before long, he started this cycle of retirements and comebacks, missing entire seasons while battling personal issues. Williams eventually walked away to pursue wellness and astrology, which is pretty fitting if you ask me. Ron Dayne is up next, and he bulldozed through the Big Ten for 4 years, leading the conference in rushing 3 times and capping it off with 1,834 yards and 19 touchdowns in his final year. The guy was very big and was supposed to be too large to play tailback, but Barry Alvarez promised him the position, and Dayne delivered with 2 Rose Bowl MVPs. Giants drafted him 11th overall and paired him with Tiki Barber in a sort of thunder and lightning backfield. Dayne managed 770 yards as a rookie, but he never became the feature back that he was in college. He finished with just 3,722 rushing yards and 28 touchdowns over the course of 7 seasons, missing the Giants Super Bowl run after leaving for Denver and Houston. After 6 more years, we got another guy who is up there with the best college athletes in history. Reggie Bush wasn't just fast or elusive. He made defenders miss in ways that would literally make you do a double take. Pretty much nobody had looked like this since Barry Sanders. In that 2005 Heisman season, he had 1,740 rushing yards, an insane 8.7 yards per carry, plus 478 receiving yards and 18 total touchdowns. He won with nearly 88% of the first place votes, which as a running back is ridiculous. The Saints grabbed him 2nd overall, and Bush's rookie year showed flashes. He didn't light it up as a pure runner, but he did have 1,307 yards from scrimmage. In 2008, he returned 3 punts for touchdowns, and of course, he did help New Orleans win their Super Bowl the year after. Whenever he touched the ball, something special could easily happen.
And there is the end around and a double reverse. Here is Reggie Bush on the double reverse inside the 10, dives in.
His best season was probably in Detroit in 2013 when he hit the 1,000-yard mark for the 2nd time in his career, but let's be real, Bush never really lived up to all the hype. He seemed hesitant between the tackles, dancing around instead of powering forward, and he was injured a lot. He only played 16 games 2 times in 11 seasons. Even so, he retired with 9,088 scrimmage yards and 54 touchdowns, which is a lot more than people remember. Bush also had to give up his Heisman for 14 years before eventually getting it back in 2024. He also sued USC, the Pac-12, and the NCAA for using his name without permission. In 2009, Mark Ingram's Heisman season saw him rush for 1,658 yards and 20 total touchdowns. He came back for the 2010 season, but wasn't anywhere near as good. The Saints still drafted him 28th overall in 2011, and Ingram spent his rookie year sharing carries, but the patience eventually paid off. He made 3 Pro Bowl appearances and had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2016 and 2017. Ingram finished his career back in New Orleans and retired with 8,111 rushing yards, becoming the Saints' all-time rushing leader at the time, although Alvin Kamara has overtaken him now. These days, Ingram is analyzing games on Fox Sports' Big Noon Kickoff. Now, the last back to win the Heisman was all the way back in 2015, Derrick Henry. He rushed for 2,219 yards and 28 touchdowns. And he was just dominant all throughout that Alabama run, putting up 158 yards and 3 touchdowns in the championship game alone. In hindsight, it's pretty shocking to look back and think he fell to the 45th overall pick in the draft. And he didn't exactly go into the best situation because the Titans already had DeMarco Murray at the time. So Henry had just 490 yards as a rookie, then 744 yards in year number 2. But since 2018, he's been an absolute monster, making 5 Pro Bowls and winning 2020 Offensive Player of the Year. He's led the league in rushing twice, touchdowns 3 times, and nearly became the first player ever with 2 2,000-yard seasons after rushing for 1,921 yards in 2024. What makes this guy truly insane is the workload that he gets. He's led the league in carries 4 times, and he seems to just keep getting stronger, which is especially crazy to think when you think about how the guy had 2,000-yard seasons in high school, college, and the pros. He's 18th all-time currently in rushing yards, and with one more good season in 2025, he could easily break into the top 10, and honestly, I'm not going to bet against him. Hell, at the way he's playing, he could break into the top 5 by the time of his retirement. Almost every Heisman-winning running back just proved how tough it could be to make it in the NFL. You can have all the talent and hype in the world, but college football's most prestigious award cannot guarantee success once you step onto a pro field. Since 1969, NFL teams have spent a top 3 draft pick on 24 different running backs, putting their reputation on the line for one player. Some became Hall of Famers who broke records and carried teams all the way to the promised land, but others flamed out so badly that they got coaches fired and left franchises stuck in rebuild mode for years. So I had to go back and study all 24 to find out what actually separates the legends from the busts, because a lot of the time, it's not just talent. Now, why would I start in 1969, you ask? Well, because if I left OJ off this list, I would have heard about it in the comments section for weeks and weeks. Simpson was taken with the first overall pick by Buffalo in 1969. He came into the league with huge expectations after tearing it up at USC, but man, his first few seasons, they weren't too great. The Bills were trash, and the juice looked like he was running through quicksand instead of breaking away for touchdowns. People started thinking, wait, is this just another college star who can't handle the pros? But something changed in 1972. Lou Saban made him the main focus of their offense, and Simpson went off for over 1,200 yards. And the year after that, he did something nobody thought was even possible. He ran for 2,003 yards in just 14 games. I mean, he hit more than 143 rushing yards per game, and nobody has matched that pace since. For 5 straight years, the dude was first-team All-Pro. He won MVP in 73 and finished his career with 11,236 rushing yards.
He's the best running back at a time when the most important part of the offensive game is running the football. I think you could easily argue that O.J. Simpson is the most valuable player of the 70s for the entire league.
Of course, most people just think of the murder trial when they think of OJ, but anybody who saw him play will always remember those mid-1970s seasons when he was just unstoppable. Now, that same draft also gave us one of the biggest busts ever. Leroy Keys, 3rd overall to Philadelphia. Keys was supposed to be this versatile playmaker who finished 2nd and 3rd in Heisman voting over his final 2 years at Purdue. The Eagles thought they were getting a legitimate weapon at the running back position. Instead, injuries just wrecked his career. He only started 11 games as a rookie, played just 3 games in year number 2, and eventually even switched to safety. Keys retired after only playing 5 years in the league with just 369 total rushing yards to his name. After retiring, he lived a quiet life, and he did eventually get back into football coaching at Purdue. A few years later, we got Bo Matthews. San Diego took him 2nd overall in 1974. Matthews was supposed to be a key part of the Chargers' ground game, but the guy just never got it going. His rookie year was actually his best season, and that's pretty rough when your peak is 328 yards and 4 touchdowns. He averaged just 3.7 yards per carry across his whole career, finishing with under 1,600 total rushing yards before just fading away. He actually found more success after football, setting up the Bo Matthews Center for Excellence, a nonprofit help group and homeless shelter. Moving into the second half of the 70s, you get Chuck Muncie, 3rd overall to New Orleans in 1976. Muncie had everything that you wanted in a running back: size, speed, power, and he was pretty good in the pros. But the Saints were a total disaster when he was with them. Then when he got traded to San Diego, all of a sudden the dude was leading the league with 19 rushing touchdowns in 1981 and making back-to-back Pro Bowl appearances.
Muncie came to the Chargers with a reputation as cloudy as his talent was brilliant. Perhaps even Muncie himself is not truly aware of his strength and power.
The trouble is, he had a real problem with the white stuff that he just couldn't shake off, and it forced him into an early retirement. Kind of sad to think about because at the time, he was 9th in NFL history in rushing touchdowns. The year after that brought us a really tragic story with Ricky Bell, 1st overall to Tampa Bay in 1977. Bell looked like he had everything going for him. The USC background with 2 straight All-American honors, the size, the power, but something was just not right. The guy struggled to stay healthy and never came close to living up to expectations. Turns out Bell was actually fighting a rare muscle disease that nobody even knew about at the time. He unfortunately died in 1984 at just 29 years old. Sticking with that same 1977 draft, Dallas really hit the jackpot when they grabbed Tony Dorsett 2nd overall. Dorsett was totally different from the power backs around that time period. This guy was smaller, shifty, and had crazy acceleration that could turn any old handoff or pass into a touchdown. His rookie year was electric. 1,007 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns, even though he only started in 4 out of his 14 games. Dorsett finished with over 12,700 rushing yards and made the Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, he's been showing signs of CTE in recent years, and last year, Deadspin actually reported on him being one of the first living players to get diagnosed. But man, that blazing speed and vision made him one of the most exciting running backs to ever play the game. This dude might have had the most dominant start to any career that we have ever seen. He got nicknamed the human wrecking ball, and I mean, just watch the tape for yourselves. The guy would rather run straight through people than around them. His rookie year was nuts. 1,450 yards, plus he finished 2nd in MVP voting while winning Offensive Player of the Year and Rookie of the Year. Then the next year, he just goes and wins MVP with 1,697 yards and 19 touchdowns. Year 3, another casual 1,934 yards and an average of 128.9 yards per game.
You saw on Campbell, you saw defenses that feared him.
3 straight years leading the league in rushing and just punishing defenses. And this was all happening while Tony Dorsett was going crazy in Dallas, so Texas football fans, they were living the dream. But running with that style, Campbell's body took a brutal beating. After 6 years of pretty much being the most scary guy in the entire league, his knees and back were just done. He tried sticking around for about 2 more years, but never hit 1,000 yards in a season after that. Campbell finished with 9,407 rushing yards and made the Hall of Fame, but the really sad part is he now needs a walker to get around because of the nerve damage and spinal problems. The guy who ran through everybody eventually got taken down by his own style. A couple years later, Detroit thought they found their franchise guy with Billy Sims, 1st overall in 1980. Sims was the 1978 Heisman winner who looked like he was going to be real special. His rookie year was great as well, 1,303 yards and a league-leading 13 touchdowns, while also winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. But then 1984 happened, and Sims got hit with this devastating knee injury that just ended everything. The crazy part is, if that injury never happens, then Detroit probably never gets to draft Barry Sanders 5 years later, the guy who's arguably the greatest running back of all time, but we're going to get to him in just a minute. The Jets grabbed Freeman McNeil 3rd overall in the 1981 draft, hoping they'd finally found their man. He led the league in rushing during that weird strike-shortened 1982 season and had a good 12-year career that included 3 Pro Bowl appearances and 1 first-team All-Pro appearance, finishing with over 8,000 rushing yards. He lit it up in the playoffs in 1982 with 202 yards versus the Bengals and 101 more versus the Raiders, helping the Jets to win some postseason games for the first time in what felt like forever. He was a pretty solid player, and even after retirement, he stayed connected to the Jets and was on the red carpet a few years back when they showed off the new uniforms. New Orleans drafted George Rogers first in that same 1981 draft class, and he was scorching hot during his rookie year.
Who came to town under pressure and proceeded to make history.
Rogers won the 1980 Heisman at South Carolina after putting up 1,781 yards, then immediately came in and led the entire NFL in rushing with 1,674 yards, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. Everything was looking perfect. But he's another guy who just couldn't stay away from the powder. Guy spent over $10,000 on drugs during that rookie season alone. I mean, he did eventually get clean and won the Super Bowl with Washington, but his peak was way too brief for a first overall pick. In 1983, Seattle grabbed Kurt Warner, 3rd overall, and he had this fantastic rookie year with 1,449 yards and 13 touchdowns. By the way, this is not talking about the quarterback Kurt Warner, we're talking about running back Kurt Warner here. I'm sure you guys knew that, but I had to clarify. But here's his problem. The 2nd overall pick in that same draft class just completely overshadowed everybody else. Then Warner tore his ACL in the 1984 opener, and boom, his season was over before it even began. He did bounce back strong in 1985 and had an incredible 1986 season, rushing for 1,481 yards and 13 touchdowns, but Warner will always be the forgotten star from that running back class. Because this guy right here had one of the greatest rookie seasons by any player at any position in NFL history. He ran completely upright with this smooth, gliding style that made it look like he wasn't even trying. Those prescription goggles became so iconic, and his acceleration was ridiculous. Once he hit a hole, defenders had no chance. That first year, he had 1,808 rushing yards, led the league in rushing, won Offensive Rookie of the Year, and even came in 2nd place for MVP. But somehow he got even better in year 2. In 1984, Dickerson did something that seemed impossible. He broke OJ's single-season rushing record, finishing with 2,105 yards. Although he did have 2 more games to do so. But that record has survived 16 game seasons, 17 game seasons, and 4 decades of rule changes that favor more offense. We won't talk about Barkley last year though, because as a biased Eagles fan, he would have definitely broken it. The crazy part is how easy Dickerson made it all look. He led the league in rushing 4 times and finished with over 13,000 career yards. When he finally hung up the cleats, he did some analyst and reporting work and appeared on a bunch of TV shows like Celebrity Apprentice and Hell's Kitchen. In 1986, things got very interesting. Tampa Bay chose Bo Jackson with the 1st overall pick, but he flat out refused to play for them. See, a month before the draft, Buccaneers owner Hugh Culverhouse took Bo on a private jet visit during his senior baseball season. They told him the NCAA and SEC had cleared the trip, but it was a complete lie. Because the SEC didn't allow athletes to be pro in one sport and amateur in another. He got declared ineligible, basically screwing up the entire season. The next year, Bo got drafted yet again, this time by the Raiders, and he was given this contract that let him play both baseball and football at the same time, even if it meant missing some games. If you just look at Bo's stats, you might think, well, what's the big deal here? Just 2,782 rushing yards over the course of 4 seasons? But anybody who watched him play will tell you that numbers just couldn't capture what Bo was all about. This was the only guy in history who played both NFL and MLB at an all-star level. He had the longest run in the NFL 3 different years, would break bats over his knee and his helmet when he struck out, and became this total legend in Tecmo Bowl, which was an old video game. From his insane 40-yard dash time that may or may not have happened, to running up stadium walls, the stories made him so much bigger than football. Then came his brutal hip injury in the 1990 playoffs against Cincinnati, and it all ended way too soon. Even so, he's the perfect example that sometimes being legendary matters way more than just having the best stats. The 1987 draft saw Houston grab Alonzo Highsmith 3rd overall, and this one just did not pan out at all. Highsmith was supposed to be this bulldozing fullback, but injuries and a holdout as a rookie just killed any momentum. The guy never rushed for more than 531 yards in a single season. But here's what's wild. After football, he became a heavyweight boxer with a 27-1-2 record. Then he moved into NFL front offices and actually had way more success than he ever did as a player. But 1989, that's when we got the guy who many think is the greatest running back to ever play the game, Barry Sanders, 3rd overall to Detroit. Sanders came off one of the most insane college seasons that you'll ever see. 2,628 yards and 37 touchdowns in just 11 games at Oklahoma State. But even that crazy college production didn't prepare people for what they were about to witness in the NFL. This guy was just pure magic on the field. Sanders had these ankle-breaking spin moves, impossible cuts, and could make defenders miss in spaces the size of a phone booth.
Kramer, the Barry spins free, touchdown, Lions!
He never had a season under 1,000 yards, made the Pro Bowl every single year, and averaged 5 yards per carry for his entire career, which is absolutely nuts. His 1997 MVP season saw him put up 2,053 yards with a 14-game streak of 100-yard-plus performances that's still an NFL record. Sanders could have played in any era because his agility was just from another planet. The real tragedy is that he never got any playoff success that he deserved, because playing for those Lions teams was brutal. And then he totally shocked everybody by retiring in 1999 at just 30 years old. He walked away with over 18,000 combined yards from scrimmage and Walter Payton's rushing record within reaching distance. Just like you'd expect, he's been super quiet since retiring, but Detroit finally gave him his due with a bronze statue outside of Ford Field in 2023, the first player monument in franchise history. The very next year, the Jets went and made one of their absolute worst picks ever, Blair Thomas, 2nd overall in 1990. Thomas was a top 10 Heisman finalist at Penn State who looked really smooth and had all the right tools. His first 2 seasons actually showed some promise with over 600 yards each year. But then in 1992, injuries just started wrecking everything. By 1995, the guy played 7 games and had a whopping 90 yards total. Just 2,236 career rushing yards for a 2nd overall pick, not gonna cut it. 3 years later, we had Garrison Hearst, 3rd overall to the Phoenix Cardinals in 1993, and his story is really all about just refusing to give up. Hearst had a rough start with the Cardinals, only 264 yards as a rookie, but 1995 was when he really exploded for over 1,000 yards. His absolute best play was probably this insane 96-yard overtime touchdown run against the Jets in 1998, that sent Candlestick Park absolutely crazy. But just when his career was starting to really take off, Hearst completely shattered his ankle in the playoffs and developed a vascular necrosis, the same condition that ended Bo Jackson's career. Doctors straight up told him that he'd never play again. But Hearst said forget that. He missed 2 full seasons, but then came back and won Comeback Player of the Year in 2001. I guess sometimes the best stories aren't really about raw talent. They're about just refusing to quit when everything is stacked against you. And then sometimes they really are about raw talent, because the mid-90s brought us Marshall Faulk, 2nd overall to Indianapolis in 1994, and this dude had one of the best primes of any running back on this entire list. Faulk was just different from every running back that we'd seen before. He could run between the tackles, bounce it outside, and catch passes like a receiver. His rookie year was incredible, 1,282 rushing yards and 1,804 total yards from scrimmage, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. But things really kicked off when he got traded to St. Louis in 1999. Faulk became the centerpiece of the greatest show on turf, and his numbers went absolutely through the roof. That first year with the Rams, he set an NFL record with 2,429 yards from scrimmage. What came next was the most dominant 3-year stretch any running back has ever had. Faulk won 3 straight Offensive Player of the Year awards from 1999 to 2001, plus the MVP in 2000. He finished 2nd in MVP voting the other 2 years, meaning that he was either MVP or runner-up for 3 straight seasons. Faulk finished with over 19,000 yards from scrimmage, 5th all-time, and totally changed what a modern running back could be. After retiring, he did some TV work, but most recently he's been coaching with Deion Sanders at Colorado. 1995 gave us one of the most heartbreaking stories ever. Bijan Carter, first overall to Cincinnati. Carter was this explosive runner from Penn State who looked like he was going to be a complete superstar. He was the MVP of the Rose Bowl and had that home run speed NFL teams just dream about. Then disaster hit during his first preseason game. A torn ACL cost him his entire rookie season. He never bounced back from that, finishing with just 1,144 career yards. Sometimes one play just changes everything. Now we're going to fast forward all the way to 2005, and Miami grabbed Ronnie Brown second overall. Brown got off to a solid start with 907 yards as a rookie, then broke 1,000 yards in year number 2. But most people remember him for that year in 2008. The September game against New England was just awesome to watch. Brown taking direct snaps, runs for 4 touchdowns, even throws for another one in a shocking 38-13 upset of the Patriots.
Now Williams will shift. Look at that. Ronnie Brown, untouched. Again, Ronnie Brown looking to throw it. Brown, touchdown!
His jersey from that game is sitting in the Hall of Fame actually as I speak. The Wildcat helped Miami go from 1-15 in 2007 to 11-5 in 2008. Brown never became that every down superstar, and he split a lot of time with Ricky Williams, but he for sure gave us some pretty awesome highlights along the way. And speaking of highlights, there might be none better than this next guy up, at least in college. In the 2006 draft, all eyes were on Reggie Bush, who went second overall to New Orleans after one of the most insane college careers that we'd ever seen. His 2005 Heisman season at USC was pure magic. 2,218 yards from scrimmage and 18 touchdowns with highlights that are still doing its rounds on YouTube today. This guy can make defenders miss in so many ways that seem to totally break the laws of physics. But Bush's NFL career became this lesson of why college dominance doesn't always translate. His rookie year showed flashes, 565 rushing yards and over 1,300 total yards from scrimmage. The problem was that Bush kept looking for that highlight reel run instead of just taking what defenses gave to him. He'd dance around in the backfield searching for the home run when there's 3 yards sitting right there in front of him. Still, he had some incredible moments. That playoff run against Arizona in the Saints Super Bowl run looked like something straight out of Madden. Bush finished with over 9,000 scrimmage yards and helped deliver New Orleans its first championship. But compared to all that hype, he'll always be remembered as the guy who was supposed to be revolutionary but just ended up being pretty good. But if Bush was a disappointment, then boy, Trent Richardson was a straight up disaster. Cleveland grabbed him third overall in 2012, hoping they'd found the next Adrian Peterson. Richardson absolutely destroyed people at Alabama. 1,679 rushing yards and 24 total touchdowns in 2011, including that legendary run against Ole Miss, where he shook a defender so hard the guy probably needed a chiropractor afterwards.
College football. Takes a handoff again, breaks 3 tackles, gets away, and Trent Richardson picking up a couple blocks. He might take it, cuts back, stays on his feet. What a move, shake it, bake it, and he makes it.
His rookie year actually looked pretty decent, 950 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns, but then Cleveland did something totally shocking. They traded him to Indianapolis for a first-round pick just 2 games into his second year. That should have been a huge warning sign right there. He finished with only 2,032 career rushing yards over 3 seasons before completely washing out. After failing in the NFL, he went to Canada and even Mexico, and now he's coaching running backs at a high school in Alabama. If you want to say that he was a big factor in running backs losing their value in recent years, I'm not going to argue with you. But then it all leads to Saquon Barkley, who went second overall to the Giants in 2018, and this guy just reminded everybody why elite running backs still matter. Coming off his insane 2024 season where he nearly broke Eric Dickerson's rushing record, Barkley proved that when he's healthy, he's the most complete back in the entire NFL. He hit 2,005 rushing yards, averaging 125 yards per game, and had 11 games over 100 yards, including a 255-yard explosion against the Rams.
A 6-yard shy of a career high for rushing yards, and he's got it, and he's got more, and he's gonna go all the way. What a night, what a season, what a player.
Barkley's college career at Penn State included back-to-back 18 touchdown seasons with those ridiculous combine numbers that made scouts go crazy, and he for sure delivered in his rookie year. with 1,307 rushing yards. But then injuries started piling up. For 3 seasons, it looked like Barkley might become another talent who got derailed by his body breaking down. But 2024 totally changed everything. Giants letting him walk to Philadelphia was a complete disaster for New York and an absolute gift for the Eagles. Thank you, by the way, to the Giants. I have to say that. Barkley carried Philadelphia through the playoffs with 499 yards and 5 touchdowns, capping off the most dominant season by a running back in years, of course with a Super Bowl win. And after the season, he signed a record-breaking extension that makes him the highest paid running back in history. So that's every running back drafted within the top 3 since 1969, and the results are all over the place. I was going to cover every one of them taken in the top 5, but that list became way too long as I was making it. It kind of seems like teams have started trending back towards high running back picks, especially with guys like Bijan Robinson and now Ashton Jeanty. Since 1970, 10 receivers have gone in the top 3 picks of the NFL draft, with teams betting everything on guys who shredded college defenses and looked unstoppable on film. Some became legends, rewrote the record books, and even chased Jerry Rice's all-time yardage mark. Others disappeared, leaving their teams with nothing to show for a once-in-a-lifetime gamble. So in this video, we're breaking down all 10 wide receivers taken, what made them can't-miss prospects, how their careers actually played out, and why some of them dominated while others never found their footing. Starting off, we have Wes Chandler, back in 1978, and to be honest, at first it looked like the Saints made a big mistake with this one. Coming out of Florida, he was supposed to be this elite receiver, but his rookie year wasn't anything too game-breaking. I mean, 35 catches for 472 yards in 16 games. He was averaging under 30 yards per game that season. For a guy drafted that high, those numbers weren't going to cut it. Saints fans were probably thinking that they wasted another top draft pick, but you know what? Sometimes the best players just take a minute to figure things out. The next season, Chandler started every single game, broke 1,000 yards for the first time, and caught the longest receiving touchdown in the entire league that year. But he really put on a show in 1982. This could be one of the craziest seasons that viewers had ever seen. He was traded to the Chargers during the previous season, and the 1982 season was shorter because of the strike that was going on, but the dude still led the league with 1,032 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns, which is 129 yards per game. Just to put that into perspective for you, when Calvin Johnson broke Jerry Rice's record in 2012, he averaged 122.8 yards per game. Back-to-back weeks against the 49ers and Bengals combined, the Chargers put up 1,199 total yards of offense. Chandler was on fire during those games, hauling in 17 catches for 385 yards and 5 touchdowns. By the time he retired, he had 4 Pro Bowls and won a Super Bowl. So if it was up to me, I'd have to say his career panned out just fine. We only had to wait 2 more years for another top 3 guy, and this time he had everything going for him. Olympic gold medalist, world record holder, college success, but it all fell apart. So the Jets are looking at Lamb Jones in 1980, and on paper, this dude was perfect. His speed was legendary in Texas.
Took off like nothing I've ever seen before.
The announcer says, and here comes Johnny Jones.
Jones caught and passed every runner in front of him to win the race and the state championship.
At 18 years old, he was the youngest guy from Texas to ever make the U.S. Olympic track team. He won gold in Montreal, running the second leg of a world record 4x100 relay. Then he went to college and played running back behind Earl Campbell at Texas. After just 1 season at running back, he started to play more receiver, and the Jets eyed him up as a new weapon for their passing attack once the 1980 draft rolled around. To be honest, his rookie year wasn't anything crazy, but it wasn't bad either. 25 catches for 482 yards and 3 touchdowns. Keep in mind, he hadn't played receiver until his second year in college, but man, things went downhill fast after that. His best season was in 1983 with just 734 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he was completely done after 1984, meaning that he only had 2,322 career receiving yards and 13 touchdowns. Not even close to what you're looking for from a top 3 draft pick. The really sad part is what happened after football for him, where he battled a lot of drinking problems. He did eventually come clean and became a motivational speaker, sharing his story with high school kids, and the guy even donated his Olympic gold medal to the Texas Special Olympics, which is pretty incredible. But in 2005, he was diagnosed with bone marrow cancer and sadly passed away in 2019 at just 60 years old. In 1984, the Patriots made Irving Fryar the #1 overall draft pick, and his rookie year was so bad that the rest of the guys on this list are pretty lucky that they still got drafted so high up. We're talking about 11 catches for 164 yards and 1 touchdown. For the very first pick in the entire draft, those numbers were atrocious. Patriots fans had to be thinking that they'd blown the most valuable pick in football. But you see, Fryar's story gets really weird from here. The next year, he made the Pro Bowl with 670 yards and 7 touchdowns. In Super Bowl 20 against the Bears, he scored New England's only touchdown, even though they did get absolutely crushed 46-10. For years, Fryar would have these decent seasons, but never really exploded. He couldn't even break 1,000 yards, and by his 7th year, Chris Collinsworth was on the TV basically calling him a bust and saying his career was over. That's when Fryar decided to prove everybody wrong, especially Collinsworth.
About 5 years into my career in the NFL, Chris Collinsworth retired and started doing commentary like he is now still. He said that I was a first-round bust. Well, he struck a nerve. He struck a nerve. He pissed me off, and I played the rest of those years trying to prove him wrong.
Fryar took it personally and finally broke 1,000 yards at the age of 29. Then he did it 4 more times after that. His best season came when he was 32 with 1,270 yards and 7 touchdowns. He played until he was 38, which is honestly crazy for a receiver back then. When it was all said and done, he had 851 catches for 12,785 yards and 84 touchdowns over the course of 17 seasons. I guess sometimes this just goes to show you the best motivation is just people telling you that you can't do something and then you have to prove them wrong. But even Fryar couldn't save what turned out to be one of the worst draft classes in NFL history. Now in 1996, the Jets had the first overall pick. They were desperately not trying to mess up another top 3 wide receiver selection here, and all signs pointed to Keyshawn Johnson from USC. And Johnson was already running his mouth, telling everybody that he was going to be special before he even caught a single pass. His rookie year actually matched the big talk though. 63 catches for 844 yards and 8 touchdowns. Finally, it looked like we had a receiver here who could walk the walk. And over the next decade, he put together a really solid career. 814 catches, 10,571 receiving yards, 64 touchdowns across 11 years. He also won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay, made 3 Pro Bowls, and had 4 1,000-yard receiving seasons. His best year was 1998 with 1,131 yards and 10 touchdowns. And that year in the playoffs against Jacksonville, he had one of the best all-around games of all time. 9 catches for 121 yards and a score, plus he rushed for another touchdown, recovered a fumble, and picked off a pass on defense at the very end of the game off a Hail Mary. I'd have to call that stuffing the stat sheet. The problem is that his mouth never stopped running. The guy earned the nickname Meeshawn because he made everything about himself. The Jets eventually got so sick of the drama that they ended up trading him for the 13th and 27th overall picks before the 2000 season. Oh, and we just can't move on without mentioning that in the same 1996 draft, you had Marvin Harrison Sr. and Terrell Owens. Both guys are in the Hall of Fame today. But at least Meeshawn was a solid pick. In 2003, the Lions blew a pick so badly that it would haunt them for years. You see, Detroit's sitting there with the 2nd overall pick, and they're looking at Charles Rogers from Michigan State. He'd been destroying college defenses and looked like he was going to be the perfect fit for their struggling offense. And in his very first game, he had 2 touchdown catches.
This one complete. Charles Rogers gets the feet down.
There was one big problem though. That was the peak of his entire career. Rogers only managed 22 catches for 243 yards during that 2003 season before getting hurt. But you know what? People were like, hey, injuries happen to everybody. He's going to bounce back. Well, that didn't happen. Rogers played exactly 1 game in 2004. 1 game. And didn't register a single catch. Then he played 9 games in 2005. And after that, he was completely done. Out of the league entirely. His entire NFL career was 440 yards and 4 touchdowns. And remember, 2 of those touchdowns were in his debut. The really sad part is what happened after football ended. Rogers battled drug addiction and got into some legal trouble, including an assault and battery arrest in 2008. In 2019, he died of liver failure at just 38 years old after being diagnosed with cancer. And looking back on this draft class, just to stick the knife in a little bit further, rest in peace, by the way, to Charles Rogers. But with the very next pick, the Texans grabbed Andre Johnson, who I'm going to tell you about right now. With pick number 3, the Texans selected Andre Johnson out of Miami. You see, Houston joined the league just 1 year prior as an expansion team, and it was anything but pretty. Their quarterback David Carr was sacked the most amount of times in the league, and their offense just couldn't get anything going because of it. Johnson was brought in to give Carr a first read that he could rely on, and boy, was he the perfect fit for the job. Johnson immediately led the team in receiving yards as a rookie with 976, but it only got better from there. From 2006 to 2013, when Andre was healthy, he was a different beast. He led the league in receiving yards per game at 3 different times during that 8-year stretch, and also led the league in receiving both in 2008 and 2009. Unfortunately for Johnson, he was in his prime during the same time as players like Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, and even AJ Green, so it's safe to say that he was a bit overlooked. But he was powerful, fast, he blocked great, and he had a mean right hook, if I do say so myself. By the end of his career, he had built up a Hall of Fame resume with 14,185 receiving yards, 70 touchdowns, 7 Pro Bowl appearances, and 2 first-team All-Pro appearances. Johnson was inducted recently with the 2024 class. And the very next year, the Cardinals were about to hit the jackpot. In 2004, they had their eyes on a receiver from Pittsburgh named Larry Fitzgerald. And this guy literally grew up around NFL greatness. His dad was a sports writer covering the Vikings, so as a kid, he got to watch Randy Moss and Chris Carter destroy defenses up close and personal.
Growing up in Minnesota, you worship the ground that Chris Carter walked on. Most anybody that watches professional football, they only see what they do on Sunday. I was able to see him Monday through Saturday.
The Cardinals were desperately in need of a game changer, and Fitzgerald looked like he could be that guy immediately. He had a good rookie year with 58 catches for 780 yards and 8 touchdowns. Solid numbers, but it was nothing that made you think, this guy is going to be a legend one day. Then we had Kurt Warner come to Arizona and recover some of his old magic, and everything just exploded.
Warner firing downfield, looking for Fitzgerald. There's one, Tony. Larry Fitzgerald takes it to the end zone.
All of a sudden, you got Larry Fitzgerald leading the league with 103 catches for 1,409 yards and 10 touchdowns. And this guy could catch absolutely anything thrown his way. His catch radius was so massive that he was winning every jump ball and making corners look stupid in the process. But his most impressive moment for sure came in the 2008 playoffs when he had the best postseason run of all time.
That playoff run that you had, that was the most remarkable run of football I've ever seen from a wideout.
I mean, Fitzgerald went nuclear, dragging a Cardinals team that had no business being there all the way to the Super Bowl. He had 546 yards and 7 touchdowns across 4 games. In the NFC Championship against Philadelphia, he torched the Eagles for 152 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then there's the performance in the Super Bowl itself. There might not be another player who deserved to win more based on their performance in the big game, but I guess it just wasn't meant to be. When he retired, Fitz had 17,492 yards and 121 touchdowns. He caught a touchdown pass from 16 different quarterbacks, and he was also the closest anyone's ever gotten to Jerry Rice's insane all-time yardage mark of 22,895. And don't forget, Jerry Rice played with Joe Montana and Steve Young. If Fitz had consistent elite quarterback play during his entire career, he could have probably challenged Rice's all-time records. In 2005, the Browns thought that they had found their own version of Larry Fitzgerald, but instead they got a guy who made one of the most embarrassing bets in all of sports history, I'd say. His rookie year, he had 512 yards and 3 touchdowns. Nothing crazy, but you could see the potential there. Edwards had all the size and athleticism that made scouts go crazy, and the Cleveland fans started getting excited about this pick and having their first elite receiver in just about forever. Then 2007 happened, and for one season, their dreams looked like a reality. Edwards went absolutely nuts, 1,289 yards and 16 touchdowns, even making the Pro Bowl. He was catching everything that was thrown his way. But the next season, Edwards made a public bet with Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps that he would catch 17 touchdowns. Instead, he led the entire NFL in drop passes and only caught 3 touchdowns. The Browns went 4-12, and Edwards looked like a complete joke. His career really never bounced back from that. I mean, he played for a few more teams before calling it quits with just 359 catches for 5,522 yards and 40 touchdowns. The 2005 receiver class did have some standout guys like Roddy White, who went 27th, and Vincent Jackson, who went 61st. Both of those guys had much better careers than the guy picked 3rd overall. But to be fair though, there were also a ton of dud wide receivers in this class as well, such as Troy Williamson, Mike Williams, and Matt Jones. So this class was kind of a minefield. Edwards has done some good stuff though since retiring. He runs scholarship programs for Cleveland kids and even saved an 80-year-old man's life at a YMCA in 2024. All right, you guys knew this one was coming. We're moving on to 2007, and this is the pick to end all picks. The Lions drafted somebody who redefined what was possible at the wide receiver position. After years of watching other teams nail their receiver picks while theirs completely flopped, Detroit had Calvin Johnson from Georgia Tech sitting right there in front of them. Johnson was a 6'5" absolute freak who ran a 4.35 40-yard dash time and caught passes like he had actual magnets in his gloves. Most scouts didn't even have him as their top receiver. They had him as the best player in the entire draft class, no matter what position. As a rookie, he put up 756 yards and 4 touchdowns, but the next season, it was game over for opposing defenses. Johnson led the league with 12 touchdowns and also had 1,331 yards, including a 96-yard bomb against Houston.
Looking deep right side, got Calvin out there, hits him in stride, 50, 40, 30, not gonna catch him, 10-5, touchdown Detroit Lions.
From 2011 to 2013, many people believe that Johnson was the best player in the entire league, outside of quarterbacks. The first 2 of those 3 years, he led the league in receiving yards in back-to-back seasons and even shattered Jerry Rice's single-season record with 1,964 yards in 2012. He was also one of only 7 players in NFL history to have multiple 1,600-plus yard seasons. In his prime, cornerbacks just couldn't cover him one-on-one. Safeties couldn't get there fast enough to help. The guy was literally unguardable. The sad part about this is he walked away at 30 years old, and the Lions even made him pay back $1.6 million of his signing bonus when he retired. He stayed away from Detroit for years after that because of how bitter he was over the whole thing, and can't really blame the guy. And that brings us to the 2025 NFL draft class, when the Jaguars landed the guy that everybody was talking about.
Travis Hunter, he embodies belief, right? He's a rare person, he's a rare player, but he's also a reminder that the boundaries of the game of football were built to be challenged.
Sanders guns it. Sanders in a pocket. Oh, what a catch!
Travis Hunter is the first player ever to win the Top Defensive Player Award and the Top Receiver Award in the same season, which is insane when you think about it. He's only the second defensive player to win the Heisman since Charles Woodson did it back in 1997. Now, I'm sure he's going to try to play on both sides of the ball at certain times, but he is listed as a receiver in the pros, so it's going to be interesting for sure seeing how this whole thing plays out for him. There are also plenty of stories coming out on how great this guy's character is, so you can see why Jacksonville is so happy betting their future on him. In a league full of guys who make everything about themselves, from what I've heard and seen, Hunter looks like the exact opposite. But as exciting as this pick is, it puts a ton of pressure on Trevor Lawrence, who's got to prove that he's worth that massive contract that they gave him yet again. But looking at these receivers, the hit rate is honestly pretty brutal. Yeah, you've got Megatron, Johnson, and Fitz who dominated, but there was also a ton of careers derailed by off-the-field stuff. Personally, I can't wait to see Travis Hunter play this season, especially if he really does see action on both sides of the ball. But what do you guys think? Will he finally be the key to unlocking Trevor Lawrence? Let me know in the comment section down below. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and of course, if you want to see more videos just like this one, you're going to love this one right here, so take a look at it.